Hey everyone, my name is Omar Shaker. I'm one of the founding members of Health 2.0 Egypt, and I'm very excited. Today we have one of a kind event, definitely our biggest virtual gathering that we've pulled off ever. So I'd love to thank Sanofi Egypt for giving us the opportunity to do that. We are going to talk about a lot of topics that have to do with what does innovation for next generation pharma look like. It's a very exciting industry, and we're going to hear from so many experts. We're going to hear about patient support programs. We're going to hear about the future of clinical trials, the future of digital therapies, and venture capitalists. What are they looking for, and how can you put your innovation in front of them? But I'd love to get started with the people that are making this happen. We have a whole suite of speakers from Sanofi, from global to regional players that are going to help us understand why Sanofi is supporting innovation and why it's really important for them. So without further ado, I'd like to invite our first guest and keynote, Ahmed Raouf, the country lead for Sanofi Egypt. Ahmed Raouf, the floor is yours.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you all for attending our Sanofi Innovation Platform Symposium today. Special thanks, of course, goes to all of our eminent speakers, and looking forward to enjoying the topics and speeches in our today's gathering. Glad to welcome you all here today to celebrate the kickoff of our initiative of initiating and kicking off this innovative platform. Throughout the event, we will get to cover what is the innovation platform and to explore the opportunity to who might be interested to join us in this journey. We will also get to spend time discussing the breakthrough topics in the healthcare industry. In Sanofi, actually, we embrace the digitalization and the digital transformation efforts at all our core strategic directions. And we believe that this will give a big push to accelerate the healthcare innovation in general. And this is, of course, coming from the global level and to our local activity and our local initiatives as well. We can all acknowledge on the other side, and especially after the COVID situation, that how the innovative solutions could be strong enabler to uncover the endless opportunities, and especially in the healthcare sector, where we innovate to respond to our patient needs, to connect directly with our HCPs and customers and the healthcare service providers, and even though in our day-to-day internal connection and communication with our colleagues. So with saying that, we do believe that we have a role to support this growing ambition to drive the collective efforts to improve the health outcome, despite all the challenges that we all know and that we may face in our everyday business and practice. So that's why we are embracing this digital technology approaches and the digital transformation efforts. And when we talk about digital transformation, we need to highlight that the digital now and the digital era is not the question anymore, but the question will be the transformation out of it. And that's why we are focusing all the time around the impact that we can do with our digital and technology efforts and initiatives. We seized every opportunity with Sanofi during the last 5 years to collaborate with all partners that we can reach to contribute to this digital health innovation world. For example, we started our contribution in a very big event earlier in 2017 with Viva Tech. And later, we repeated the same experience in Africa Tech in 2019. At the early beginning of 2021, And before the lockdown, for each and every one of us, we got the opportunity to be the golden sponsor in the prominent French startup competition organized by the Committee of the French Business Community in collaboration with the Economic Office of the French Embassy in Cairo. All these efforts are to integrate and to collect our innovative solutions that will result in, on the global level, to bring innovative drugs to the market, to bring new devices that help the integrated care approach serving our patients, and to support our patients, especially in several disease management and health specific areas like diabetes, cardiovascular, rare disease, and much more to come, like oncology and other areas of focus. Collecting our efforts and expertise, and that's why we are all in this meeting together to contribute significantly to transform the way of the healthcare service are delivered. And this will help us to go through those initiatives, just like what we are gathered today to talk about with this innovation platform, to infuse outside innovation into our thinking and processes. So, by this, I would like to urge all of us here today to focus on what really matters, to focus on the transformation piece out of this digital era that we are all living in, and to find the solution together for better service to our patient and our future. Thank you all. Wish you all the best, and looking forward to collect our efforts together to reach this objective. Back to you, Omar. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ahmed. It's truly amazing to see how much Sanofi has supported innovation over the years, and I really appreciate the efforts that you guys are doing. And since Viva Tech, and we've been really involved, and now it's taking it to the next level and actually, digging down deep and seeing what's happening. So thank you so much, Ahmed Raouf. It's a pleasure having you here. And now I'd love to introduce the next guest, which is the International Head of Procurement for Sanofi, calling us from all the way from Panama, one of my favorite countries. So with that, I'd love to kick it off to Victor Alvarez, International Head of Procurement. Victor, the floor is yours.
Hello, this is Victor Alvarado, Procurement Head for International Region. Welcome again to this Sanofi Innovation Platform Symposium. This event was created for you. Please enjoy. It's important to say that the innovation platform is a key piece in our value generation journey, driven by innovation. And innovation for Sanofi means a lot of things. It implies to find new ways of working, to have optimization, to have initiatives focus and efficiencies, to have disruptive or incremental innovation initiatives, to challenge the way we are managing the demand, we are creating solutions. So innovation is a key piece for us. And we are doing this for the good of the company, to grow, to create solutions for our patients. And how we are going to do it? Through collaboration, through partnerships with a key piece in our journey, our suppliers. And that's why I'm very happy and excited to be part of this amazing event, because I'm convinced that we will find solutions and we will bring innovations and we will create win-to-win stories. Once again, enjoy the event. This event is for you. Please make comments, make questions, and let us know what you think and how can we improve. And the most important, how can we, create solutions for the future. We are open to listen. We are ready to create and solid initiatives. Let's start. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Victor Alvarado. We, couldn't pump us more and get us in the mood for innovation, which is really hard, but, I really appreciate the cheerful message and getting us really, the openness of Sanofi in general to invite speakers from all across the industry and to really communicate. And, like one of our speakers is about to say, it's, collaboration is the new competition, and we're living in a world where we can't really do anything but collaborate. So, Victor Alvarado, thank you so much, and thank you so much, Ahmed Raouf. Up next is the man on the ground, the brains behind this project, and one of the enablers for us to do this work. I would love to introduce Salah Nabil, who is the procurement head for Egypt and Sudan, and he has been the one kind of pushing, getting requirements, and really getting us to this point with a symposium. So he's someone I really appreciate his support. And now we're going to go into a demo about what kind of login process that you have. So Sanofi is launching this innovation platform that you guys can apply for really easily. There are 3 challenges. He's going to walk you through this process right now as a demo. And remember to use the QR code or the link that comes up on the screen to apply if you haven't already, if you are an innovator out there. And we love you. So thanks for being here.
Okay, thank you, Omar. Good evening, everyone. I am Salah Nabil, country procurement head for Egypt and Sudan. Again, I would like to thank you for your attendance today. I'd like to thank everyone participate in this webinar. Just I will take you for a quick journey about the platform and how to participate and how to register in the platform itself. The platform is very simple. It's friendly using. It's not a complex one. Just we'll start to have use the QR code appearing the screen or use the link. It's very basic data, your name, your email, and then you received an automatic mail within 1 minute to enter the link of the platform itself. The platform is for all the Sanofi innovation platform. After you enter the platform, you put your name and your company name, if you are a company, and then your email. As we mentioned before, that we have a main 3 challenge. It's business challenge. You can select any challenge you would like to participate, and you put your smart solution or your brilliant idea. After you select the challenge, just a small description about the challenge. If you have file, you can upload any files, attachment, presentation, make as you like in the platform. Just to be clear and to be more details in order to be understand within the selection part. After this stage, it's very simple. It takes maybe 10 minutes if you are ready to put everything. Take 10 minutes from your side maximum. Then it's ready for submission. At the end, as an admin for the platform, we can see all the idea we have. We extend the deadline to receive all your private idea and the smart solution till mid of January. And after this, we'll still have all the idea we have, and then we start to have the selection process. The selection process, I know that most of you have the question how we select, how we know that our idea is the selected one. Simply internally in Sanofi we'll have a task force from different departments, from different business, including medical, marketing, IT, business operation, procurement, finance. To select this task force, is the scope of task force is to select the best idea which is coming to meet our business needs. And for sure we'll inform all the selected idea and all the participants. There will be another wave of communication for appreciation and for inform the selected one. For the next step, how to know that Sanofi have another wave of challenges or business needs? Simply, we'll have all your contacts. We'll have the pool for all the potential supplier and all the startup. We'll have another communication with you in order to contact you and inform you about the next step for the platform and how you participate and to know the coming business challenge. So now the platform is hungry for your brilliant idea and for your smart solution. So please go and participate. Just take the QR code or enter the link. It will be very easy and waiting for you. Thank you again for all of you and for your attendance today, and good luck. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Salah. So now there are some questions coming in, and I'd love to introduce our second guest on the far right of the screen. Now, my French isn't that great, but I hope I get it right. Com Sommier. How is that?
Yes, correct. Hello, everyone.
Yes.
Good to see you doing.
So Com is the Africa lead for procurement and Africa procurement head. That is
Yes,
the right
correct.
one. And he is with us here in Egypt. So for better or for worse, thanks for choosing us. We have both him and Salah and Victor actually, and up till now we even have Ahmed Raouf. So if you guys want to ask any question about the platform, we will be ready to answer it. Now is your time. So please keep them coming. And I'm going to start just for a question for you, Com, that I'm very curious about. What innovation areas are most important for Sanofi?
So thanks so much for the question. Actually, we have many areas we are interested in looking at technologies. You know, what we are trying to do, there is one piece that that I think has been addressed and highlighted by Ahmed around how we address patient needs and how we are able to better engage with our healthcare professional and the healthcare ecosystem we're evolving. So around there, I know he mentioned patient support programs, real world evidence, omni-channels in terms of how we can actually reach to that ecosystem. There is another piece also that we didn't mention, and that's not included today in the first three challenges we've launched around efficiencies and how we can integrate more technology to drive more efficiencies. And that can be in very wide range of services, you know, how we manage our car fleet, how we manage travel. So it's not part of the challenges we've integrated so far, but I think today is really, and those first three challenges is about really building this first step into reaching out, creating this ecosystem of innovators in the healthcare and health tech environment, so that we can keep building together and share as early as possible on the challenges we have, so that you know what market you can tap in.
Classic mistake. I was on mute. I really like these focus areas. Thank you so much. And we're going to be talking about a lot of them actually today, and especially in how to engage with patients in a new way. I think it's a whole blue ocean that we're just starting to figure out. So again, I really appreciate the approach of collaboration rather than trying to figure everything out, because we're beyond that now in this exponential age that has like so many new factors coming up. Salah, I have a question for you. There's a question that's coming in actually from the audience. If we have Ahmed Gad asking us if he's not a registered company, can he still apply?
Yes, good. It's a good question. Here, our target is not only the supplier and the legal entity. Our target here, it's all the startup, all the potential suppliers. And again, after the selection phase or stage, if we select an idea, we are searching about a brilliant idea, we are searching about smart solution, we are not searching about company. So if the selected idea it meets our needs and he's not a legal entity, here also we have the full support in terms of advice, legal advice, tax advice, financial advice, how to build your legal entity, how to create your document in terms of commercial register, tax card. So we support you until you have a full legal entity in terms of advices and consultant, financial or legal or tax advice. This is maybe it will be very smooth and very easy. At the end, we have to sponsor the idea, and we sponsor the brilliant idea and the innovation concept itself.
Awesome.
I think the idea is really
I think a lot of
I think the idea is really on building a program, you know, where if you are a company that has already a technology that's available and you've already fully developed it and you're able to adapt it to our constraints, then we are more than happy to welcome you. But at the same time, if you have an idea that's advanced enough, and that's maybe the challenge, where if you don't have a company that's created, you just need to make sure that your idea is advanced enough, not just like a concept you'd wish to explore more. We are maybe more at the next stage, but that is also and those ideas are also welcome, as Salah mentioned, so that we can also bridge, you know, on our side some expertise to co-build projects together, as long as they answer the needs and help us move forward on our strategic roadmap. I think we'll be more than happy to support.
And so if I heard you guys right, because that's a second part of the question, is that if someone just has a prototype, like let's say, even if they're a registered entity, they don't have an active product that you can deploy right now. Maybe they have an idea or they have a working prototype for their idea, you know, but no users. Would you still be able to engage with the company at that level?
Yes, we would. I think we would. Again, the idea is really, as long as it gets us closer to answering the patient needs, the HCP needs, our business needs, we can definitely consider and try new things. I mean, that's definitely, I think, a direction that the company is pushing towards, trying new things. As long, again, we have a framework, you know, we're operating it in terms of regulatory, in terms of regulation. So as long as we respect that framework, definitely we can try new prototypes, try new ways of approaching those challenges, for sure.
Okay, awesome. So we have two more questions, and I actually want to see if Victor is still with us. If Victor would like to join us, and maybe we can all talk about the last question. But Victor, wave at us if you. Yes, he seems like he's ready. So Salah, I'll ask you one last question, and then we'll bring Victor to the panel. But one question we have is, you know, what's the future of the platform? Like you mentioned, the process that happens and what people can expect after applying. But what is kind of like the timeline for the challenge? I know you guys have the idea, like Kom was talking about, like the platform would continue to you know, add more challenges and add more things. So what's the future looking like?
Okay, great. Let's talking as you mentioned in the video that this challenge for the C channel or this wave, it will be end by mid of January. So still we have time to participate and put our ideas. Next step, as I mentioned, that the platform, it will be here, it will be right, but for the process itself and what will be the next challenge, at the end, still we have another wave of communication. Communication to all the potential supplier, all the startup. Now we have a pool of all the registered supplier or startups. So we'll have another wave of communication to inform them what will be the frequency of the platform. Normally, will not be in monthly basis. No, it will have a fixed timeline. We'll define it through our next wave of communication with the new challenges and new business needs. So it will be coming with another wave of communication. Okay.
Now we have two more questions, and I want the next two are trickier than the last one. So get ready. I'd love to see if either Victor or Ahmed Raouf would like to also join us in the last few minutes of this Q&A. But I don't know. I know that we might have lost Ahmed Raouf, but guys, you can just wave at us at the backstage, and we'll bring you on if you're ready. Victor or Ahmed Raouf. Okay. Victor. All right.
Yeah. Hello. I'm here.
Hello. Yes. Thank you. It's good. Oh, you're the shortest one of us. I saw the suit and I thought we must bring you on live. You're dressed for the occasion, my friend. So the question here is, the first one is regarding challenges of mental health in MENA. If a company is focused on mental health, which is by far a very hot topic right now in digital health, has attracted the most investments. So Islam Badrawi is asking us if that would be interesting for your platform, a company that's focused on mental health.
Yeah,
Does Sanofi look for that?
Yes, of course. As part of the culture, we are implementing in all countries. To work on mental health is critical. Okay, and more than ever with the COVID situation, we consider this as something critical and very important in every single location. We know that not only COVID, but also the economical situation, the political situation, especially in emerging markets, is affecting a lot of the employees, obviously a lot of our patients, and that's why Sanofi is working on this internally and externally with solutions.
I think to complete a bit, maybe I think the at this stage on the challenges, they might not find a direct correlation between what they are working on or what they've developed and what we have. But as Victor mentioned, definitely it's part of the therapeutic areas where Sanofi is playing and wants to play. So I'll find more about that.
Awesome. Yeah, I think my my internet went in and out for a second, but can you guys still hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
I think there's a little bit of a lag.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay, I think we're back, right?
Yes, you're back.
Okay, cool. Yeah, just confirming we're in the same timeline again. Okay, so we have one more question, and this one's also interesting. So Hanan Mazehi is asking about collaboration is key to this new era. What is Sanofi offering exactly in terms of support? So other than money and support, and I think maybe that's where we need to also elaborate that this is not an investment opportunity; it's a procurement opportunity, right? So I don't know if which one of you guys would like to take this on.
I can go ahead maybe and I'll let Victor probably enrich a bit what I say, especially with the global framework. But in the framework of that specific platform and of that project, so there is no funding. I mean, at this stage at least, it hasn't been designed with funding opportunities. So we don't have like a dedicated budget to invest in specific ideas to develop. It's more about bringing our challenges forward, making sure that everyone can access and understand where we need innovative solutions and where we want to collaborate so that we can then bridge expertise and give access to our market. So it's definitely more about helping innovators or startups continue developing their product or adapting their product or their idea to our business needs so that we can then partner together. And this partnership can materialize in different potential formats. The most obvious one and easiest one is becoming a supplier of Sanofi and providing your service to us to answer the need that we brought forward. That's probably the most straightforward one, and that's probably where we're gonna commit first. But saying that again, we are definitely open to bridge competencies and bring the expertise that we have inside the company to help those projects become a reality, because we do want to answer those specific business needs.
And just to complement, if we identified a good solution, here we have a great opportunity to export the solution to the rest of the countries in Sanofi. So this is a great opportunity, you know, to make a local solution something regional or even global.
Awesome, guys. There are much more questions coming in, so please keep them coming. We can, you know, forward these questions to for more answers. I see a lot of questions around different areas, and there's a question about digitizing of the patient journey. And again, like Salah said, the platform is meant to grow over time, and so there will be more challenges as they come. And as Kom was saying, the whole point now is to communicate what Sanofi is dealing with now. But then again, we need to be thinking of the future, and so this will increase. And also, one last question from Ahmed Gad. I'll answer it now. We have a landing page that if we can have Islam, we're going to send you a landing page about this. So we don't have time to answer this, but we'll send you a landing page that has all the details about the challenges. And if I can ask our project manager Islam to reply to that comment, then we can send the link in the YouTube so that we can have it. But finally, I'd love to thank you all for giving us this opportunity to really bring Egypt at the forefront of the world. And we always see like a lot of people talking about innovation, but having having something that's done in Egypt come out, and Sanofi Egypt being able to say, like, this is what we're after, and reach out to the innovation community that way with your global team is huge for us. So I'd love to thank you all. Thank you, Victor, Kom, Salah, and Ahmed Raouf for being with us. If there are any other questions, again, we're going to be sharing the challenge landing page with you. And before we move on, you've heard from so many men so far, and we're going to have a very balanced kind of gender situation throughout this symposium. But before we get into it, I just want to thank a woman that has made all of this happen, really, and that is Hala Jadid. She is the one leading communications for Sanofi Egypt, and she's the one that reached out to us in the very beginning and made this really happen. So thank you so much, Hala. Sometimes we're getting all the showtime here, but really Hela's the one that has created this. So that brings us to the end of the first segment. If you have more questions about why Sanofi is doing this platform, how to apply, well, actually, I can answer the latter here by going to this QR code that you see right there. And you can also click on the link bit.ly/Sanofi Egypt. That's bit.ly/Sanofi Egypt. And you can start going and just you fill in your email. You will see also the challenges. So that's back to Ahmed Ged. You'll see the challenges right there. And then once you choose the challenge, you will be able to apply immediately. So again, thank you so much, Sanofi. And if you guys have any more questions, please get in touch with us. Send us at and leave it in the comments, and we're going to get back to you. And also, I see that we have already posted the big. And now we are going to start the next segment, which is really about what the future looks like. And we have a set of really exciting speakers. But before then, I want to bring onto stage my good friend and innovation enabler, Mo Force. Mohannad, please join me on the stage. Mohannad, hey, ازيك? I can't hear you. Mohannad is a media guru, but I still can't hear So while Mohannad figures out his mic, as you see, his facial expressions are enough. He sometimes doesn't need to speak for you to know what he's thinking. Mohannad is a person he's also from Egypt. He has a long-standing clinical background with Pharma. He has also started 2 global accelerators so far. So I connected with him in San Francisco, and he had started Biome by Novartis, a global accelerator for it that has become really successful. And now he is with Almiral in Spain, in Barcelona, and has once again built an accelerator also for them. So he knows a thing or two about what makes a company successful and how to support innovation there. And he's also very hands-on with the local ecosystem, the local players. Yeah, perfect timing. Good. I was just running out of words to say. Hello, Mohannad.
That's good. Hello, how is everyone? And I was attending actually the first part of the session, and again, as you said, I'm happy to see already like big pharma has started to go deep and supporting actually the local companies, and especially focusing on the region. So very interesting. Saying this, actually, maybe we start like we together will be co-hosting. I think the next
Yes,
couple
indeed.
of
Mohammed,
slides.
you've seen so many companies like grow.
Sorry.
Oh, so we're not in the same timeline. So sorry to
There's maybe a delay.
sorry
I
to
think.
disrupt. You can go on.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems like it. I mean, I'm in Egypt, you're in Barcelona. Who do you think is the one with the delay?
والله برشلونة has Vodafone برضه the same.
Really? نفسها? Okay. No, I don't feel
هي
so bad now.
no huge difference. صدقني يعني.
Okay. So,
So
Mohammed, I had a question for you. Oh, we're going to disrupt each other again. Okay, I think you have a question for me. You can go first.
yeah, I was saying that actually one of the objective of today's conversation is to try to give an opportunity for the startups and the followers actually of Health 2.0 to speak and to understand a little bit what pharma is looking for, what is the industry is looking for, and giving them a better opportunity to look beyond the traditional way of creating the same exact solutions available in the market, trying to understand the new clinical trial approach, the new investment. So today we have really interesting speakers. So maybe if you would like to give them a little bit of outline of what's happening today, what do they expect in the next group of sessions? This would be very interesting.
Yes, and we have an exciting set of sessions coming up. So first, we're going to hear from Eugene, and we're going to go into digital therapies and digital therapeutics. I know we are both very excited about this. So basically, a software that's going to be used as a pill almost, or in next to a pill or instead of a pill, right? So digital therapies can now actually become like FDA approved and actually make it all the way to being adjunct to that. So that's going to be a very exciting talk. And then Mo, you are going to be interviewing Lana Ghanem, right? We're going to be talking about venture capital, and that's another really important topic, like where investments come from.
Exactly, and I think this session is very important because Lana will provide us a better understanding of a completely different level of problems that most of the startups are facing when they are trying to deal with accelerator, and most importantly as well is as an accelerator or actually investment fund, what they are looking for and why it's very hard to get them, despite they want to work with startups here in the region. But as a startup, what do you need to do to be able to work with them? So I think this session will be very interesting as well to follow.
Yes, indeed. And then we're going to end with Prasoon Mishra, my friend coming in from the Bay Area, and he's going to talk to us about the future of clinical trials, a really important one. And Mo, in your session with Lana, you mentioned it. This is one of maybe the most important and most well-funded areas of innovation in pharma, but we don't talk about it a lot. So he's going to also shed some light on that. And then we're all going to come back to the studio and we're going to have Prasoon and Lana and talk a little bit about investments in general. So for the next Q&A, you guys enjoy the upcoming few sessions, and we're going to come back with you in maybe less than an hour or so, where we're going to have a panel discussion, and you can ask us any questions you have, especially about investments, future trends, all that stuff. We're going to be ready to talk to you about. But first, we're going to start off with Eugene, and we're going to be talking about the future of digital therapies. So Eugene has a long-standing history of working in different pharma companies, and then he has also founded now Your Coach. So he's promoting healthcare coaching and helping people find health coaches. So Mo, thanks for joining. We have a very filling hour ahead of us.
Sure.
Any parting words or anything else you want to say about the segments before we?
No, I think digital therapeutic is one area that I think the region will be very interesting to start focusing on this, and the startup started to look at. So I would really advise to start to follow what Eugene will be sharing, like very thoroughly, because this is the place and this is the actual startups that we are looking at, and we hope to start seeing actually the first DTX in Middle East and the MENA region. So maybe it's a very good opportunity for our audience today to hear and track and follow something like this.
Yes, and don't forget your questions. Keep them coming. I see a lot of questions that are based on Sanofi. We'll try to answer them in the comments. But for now, we're going to go for a very short 30-second break. So don't leave anywhere. And we're going to be coming back live with Eugene in exactly 30 seconds. So I'll see you here back in the studio shortly.
I'll describe myself. Kind of self-describe myself as a serial intern entrepreneur. So what does that really mean? I either have my own companies, or in the case of your coach, I joined my amazing wife in building this out. So it's still we're co-founders. Or I am in a large company, somewhat stepping on toes with, on the larger environment where you could hide behind, emails and things like that. And I think the goal, especially us in the health and care ecosystem, is at the end of that is a patient, a consumer. And so we shouldn't be hiding behind emails. And so I love the entrepreneurial work that I do, and I'm back and forth. And then just kind of fast forward, prior to going back and working with my wife and building this, I spent some time in a pharmaceutical company, global pharmaceutical company. So, and that was fun. And where I joke around, I lost most of my hair, which is not true, but certainly it was quite an experience.
Yeah, and I really appreciate the breadth of experiences. So both being an entrepreneur and entrepreneur, I feel is really important for this next phase. And especially here in the Middle East, we're starting to look at both, ways of innovation. So both a lot of startups coming up, but then companies like Sanofi putting themselves out there and thinking, how do we change the model? And tell us a little bit, you've been having so many conversations with interesting people on both podcasts. Tell us, like, from a bird's eye view, what ideas about in digital health excite you the most right now? Like on a general level, but also like within the pharma vertical specifically.
Yeah, so I think general, I can keep kind of going and going and going, but I think the one key takeaway is that digital health is real. As a matter of fact, and I know that Brian Dolan from Exits and Outcomes and I would sort of joke around a little bit. If we each had a penny for the word, digital disappearing from digital health, that would be a good business by itself. But if you actually look at everything that we've seen in digital therapeutics and virtual care services and digital biomarkers, a lot of that is feeding just a new consumer. And notice I don't say necessarily patient, a health consumer experience, and how the models are changing of the engagement, and it's becoming a real businesses, right? We've seen, acquisitions and just large M&As. We've seen large rounds coming in, and on one side, it seems, is it a lot of money going in? And some of these rounds we're seeing are just, huge, right? But on the other side, if you look at our global healthcare system, where the spend is truly in the sick care, right? So can we get quicker to that individual, that health consumer? So that's at a broad strokes level. I think if we sort of start peeling the onion quite a bit and really focus on the pharma, I do think pharma needs to stop pretending that there will be real new business models overnight. Business models don't wake up every morning and say, I'm here. I think the reality is, pharmaceutical companies still have very healthy margins overall, and still, especially in the specialty. Now, I do think that if you're a pharma company and you're not investing into getting new drugs to market quicker and better and faster by leveraging technologies. And again, I don't want to use the AI as a buzzword. There are, 150 different technologies underneath, and that can be used. But at the end of the day, it's again, leveraging technology, algorithms, machine learning, and many other components to ultimately get that drug out to that patient quicker. I think if you're not investing in looking at additional endpoints for your clinical trial that do involve, I'll say digital biomarkers broadly, then you're not doing your job, all right? On the complete other spectrum of things, and this is, and I'm sure we'll dive deeper into it, but kind of digital therapies, I think while there is a lot of clinical evidence and standalone digital therapies such as Akili for ADHD are super interesting, got a lot of funding. I think at the end of the day, if I'm a pharma company, I'm looking at this and saying, once there's real revenues, I'll just go acquire, right? Where I think the focus needs to be for pharmaceutical companies, and where a lot of attention, I think, people are playing around with it, but not sure how to really get it done, is this real drug plus combination, right? And not just a companion purely, but really an experience that can actually help that individual and patient and consumer. So yeah, so I mean, my first comment is large companies, and this is not unique to pharma, just don't know how to innovate, right? And it's a function of just large behemoths, right? It's a function of coordination. It's a function of the Dunbar law of 150, right? There's only so many, people that you can really interact with successfully. So I think, again, this is not a pick at pharma, it's just a large organization. And this happens in all industries, right? Like the fintech stuff being acquired by, everything from Bloomberg, et cetera. So let's not dive into that. As far as working with companies, I think, the key for any pharma company today is to understand where do they really want to play, given their portfolio, given their pipeline, and, make some of these investments real. And by the way, when I say investments, pretty much most, and I know Sanofi also has a venture arm, the more, I'll say, strategic and financial ROI investments, most pharma companies have those vehicles. What I do mean by an investment is an investment within the P&L, really committing to the work that happens by what I would call digital natives in these companies that are, experimenting with things outside of the four walls, right? When you ask the specific question around kind of how do pharma companies interact with startups, but also digital therapeutic companies as part of that, which is, I think, where the eyes are. I look at it in two ways. One, pharma companies have been scouting and looking at clinical trials improvement space and finding, and prior to that, right? So even the preclinical and target identification, all of that. There's tons of technologies, tons of startups. And that's been going. I don't think there's been I don't know of a company or pharma company that really had like an exerted effort, kind of methodical around how they approach it. On the other side is sort of the digital therapeutic companies. And I want to make my comment a little bit. You kind of mentioned, well, you don't need to go for the 10 years and, for molecule development. If you look at Pear Therapeutics or Akili or even Big Health that does not working with pharma at all and going more, I'll say, direct to consumer through the employer market, and one of the most studied companies out there, they're about between 7 to 10 years old, right? Now, it's not for product development, but it's starting to get to that commercial traction, which one would argue it's about 10 years, 2.2 billion, right, for drug development. But it seems like it's about 10 years to start getting the commercial traction, which in theory, once the drug is out of phase 4 or in the oncology space, obviously earlier in many cases, that commercialization is on that 10-year mark on both sides of it. I do think, we'll see what happens with obviously the vaccines were developed in record time and how that will impact the molecular development of the vaccines, and will others follow? So for other therapeutic areas, and that speed to market will happen. I don't know. We'll have to see. I am a big believer that on the digital therapeutic side, that iteration of R&D to commercial will be getting quicker and quicker and quicker and quicker as FDA and other parties, employers are seeing the evidence, seeing the data. And so pharma companies will need to adjust to that.
That's a great perspective to think that it still takes them the same amount of time. And I think the big value here is that it's an experiential behavioral health change rather than just a drug that you become dependent on. So it also creates that kind of value, which I think is really cool.
Yep.
And one thing I think about is that, you know, when you start developing these DTX companies, a lot of the commercialization, I think, is starting to become a reality because of legislation. I don't know if you agree, but things like DIGA and FDA having a pathway. Obviously, in the Middle East, we have no pathways yet. The people still aren't even talking about it. We're starting to talk about how to regulate telehealth right now. So do you think entrepreneurs in the Middle East, and I know a lot of fantastic people that are working on DTX type ideas in Arabic for diabetics and so forth. So do you think it's a smart move to start working on them now, even though there is no path to commercialization per se? And, you know, there's even investors don't understand it when you say DTX here. So is it a smart move?
let me kind of turn this around on you in a sense, or not actually ask you a question, but I would say if you rewind back to when, again, I'll use Akili and Pear as an example. I mean, I think, you know, both Corey, founder of Pear, and Eddie, founder of Akili, if they waited for legislation and if they waited, you know, for something to actually happen, extrinsically, right, or exogenously, there would have never been a business, right? And so I think that's the definition of an entrepreneur, is actually paving the pathway for something new, and not just ideas, but actual implementation, right? And so my comment is yes, and yes, and yes, right? Keep moving, because the market is large enough. I know, you know, as an example, you know, obesity is on a huge rise, yes, in Middle East and globally. You know, and, you know, from a metabolic disease perspective, from, you know, cardiometabolic, right? So then let's include the full spectrum of that. Our brains are not getting younger. We all are living longer. So from a neurological perspective as well. And so again, you know, my comment here is, if entrepreneurs wait, they're not really entrepreneurs. You know, I would expect pharma companies to wait till something is there, right, to sort of enter the market, etc. And where I would encourage, you know, the people in the room that are listening to this, or virtually, is you know, be the change agent, right? Be the change agent inside pharma, because it will happen, right? It's just a matter of time. It just will happen. And so do you want to foster those relationships early on and be the champion for those entrepreneurs? And yes, you got a business to run at the end of the day. And maybe initially look at some of those companies as new innovative channels versus a versus a therapeutic intervention to start with. But follow the clinical and scientific evidence to get those entrepreneurs there.
It's an awesome piece of advice, and yeah, I'm right there with you. It's sometimes hard, and sometimes you need someone to tell you that, right? And I think it really is an open field. Do you think DTX is kind of, or therapies that will be commercialized, do they need to be localized, or can you have entrepreneurs from this part of the region playing in markets like Europe or Asia or the States even?
I think the short answer is yes, right? I mean, I think we're all, I mean, there's absolutely, regional, country specific, I'll say uniqueness, right? Always. But I would also say within a country, within a population, there are cohorts and everything is individualized. And that's actually the benefit of a digital therapeutic, that ultimately, while absolutely from a study perspective, there are, RCTs you need to, follow and bring that evidence together. But the beauty of these digital technologies and software-driven interventions, that they can get highly personalized, right? And as long as you're developing it that way, this should not preclude an entrepreneur in the Middle East to selling and approaching to Belgium, as an example, or vice versa. Now, of course, everything from language to understanding, honestly, even how business is done in the countries, from a regulatory framework, from security framework, from policies and procedures, that takes an exerted effort. And so, my comment to a lot of the entrepreneurs is, especially, the ones that I've been sort of working with and talking to in Europe, well, we want to jump from Netherlands to US. And my question is, what have you proved, and have you scaled enough here? Because while the market might be much, much, much larger in US, well, can you capture 30% of the market in Netherlands, right? Just again, I'm using that as an example. And I think that way, then you're raising money either from potential customers, which is harder to do than from VCs. Kind of raising revenues is harder than raising VC money. But for international expansion, once you've proven yourself as a company in one country, I think the method to that madness, and I do say in a positive way, is always there. And one thing that I would want to urge, especially people inside the pharmaceutical companies, is the decision-making process, which is highly top-down in many large corporates, but so much in pharma. There are brilliant individuals around the world inside those companies. Seek them out, search their advice, search through, and those entrepreneurs that are there, put them up on stage, not physically, but give them a voice. But again, make it concrete, because I also I think people inside these large organizations, look at, when the word entrepreneur are used, there's a lot of ideas. There's a lot of people that have ideas. And my question always is, ideas are great, but would you quit your job and go start this idea as a business, as a product, as a function? And many times the answer is no, right? Because again, ideas are cheap. The execution part is where you lose your hair, kind of thing, right? So I would actually encourage those entrepreneurs, if you're not ready to go out on your own, create a tribe, right? Internally. It's like pitching to a VC internally and fighting for that budget. If you believe in something that has value, continue fighting for it. So hopefully, sort of across the executive management side of things, as well as the entrepreneurs, and I'll call them digital natives that are around the world.
All right, that was Eugene. And now up next, as you guys can see, Mohamed Force is going to take back the stage, and he's going to be interviewing Lana Ghanem, Managing Director of Hikma Ventures. Now, this conversation they're about to see is one of my favorite ones, very raw and very informative. So enjoy. And with that, Mo Force.
Thank you for joining us today in this very interesting session about investment and about actually startups in the MENA region. And today we are having a very interesting guest who will be sharing with us actually very important insights, which will help us all in defining what is the investment pattern in the Middle East, and at the same time, if you are a startup, how actually you can get and raise fund. I'm Mohamed Force. I'm the Global Head of Innovation in Admiral, and I'm responsible for the Digital Garden, which is one of the corporate acceleration for early stage startups focusing only in digital health. My background, it's in pharma and healthcare, focusing on digital health and how can we help the transformation from startups, and at the same time from the investment as well side of the operation. So again, my objective today is to go with my very, very interesting guest today to go through this topic about the MENA region. How can you get investment, what you should do, what you shouldn't do, and try to get all your questions after this to understand your future unicorns, how they should start from an investment point of view. I'm speaking from Spain, and today we have Lana Ghanem, who is the Managing Director for Hikma Fund, one of the largest corporation for pharmaceutical in Middle East, and most importantly, one of the biggest fund for digital health in the Middle East and the global as well. Very big, important player, and today we are getting tons of insights which will help you in your next step. So if Lana, yes, hi Lana.
Hi Mo. How are you?
I'm good. So would you mind giving us a little bit of introduction about yourself, about your background, career, and at the same time, most importantly, Hikma, and
Sure.
why you are playing in this market?
Of course, of course. So happy to be here. So I was born and raised in Jordan, Palestinian Jordanian. Did my undergrad in finance and marketing in Canada. Did 3 years of investment banking in London, and after that, I did my MBA in the States. And at one point in my life, I was actually an aspiring filmmaker. So I mean, eventually, I did explore that for a bit, but I didn't end up pursuing it as a career. So after I graduated and from and got my MBA, I ended up joining Hikma Pharmaceuticals in 2012, initially as the assistant to the CEO. So I got to work on different projects, strategic projects across the company, including M&A mandates, business development, strategic market expansions. And then in 2015, I was reading up a lot about corporate VCs and how a lot of pharma companies are starting or establishing such funds. And for pharma, it was mainly originators like Pfizer, Sanofi, Merck, who were establishing such arms to invest in new chemical entities. But as Hikma, given that Hikma is a generic pharmaceutical company, it didn't really, that angle didn't really make sense for us. So what I was reading up a lot about digital health as well, and I thought that this would be an angle that could work for us and will actually, add a lot of value. So, as Hikma, we sell drugs, and how about we invest or plant seeds in startups in the digital health space that are working on innovative technologies that we don't know much about, that we can complement or use to supplement our offering as Hikma. So, for those of you who don't know, or much about Hikma, it's a global generic manufacturer. It's listed on the London Stock Exchange, and at the end of the day, it's we're at least if you ask me, we're all about becoming a healthcare solutions provider versus just selling drugs or being a drug manufacturer. So that basically fits kind of the vision, and at the end of the day, digital health is becoming a necessity than a nice to have. So this arm has been helping us kind of reach that goal.
Thank you for joining us today. So, as I mentioned, our objective today is to have a very open conversation about investment in Middle East. And as you said, you're already one of the biggest fund and the biggest players, actually, if you look at Middle East players, focusing only in digital health. Definitely plenty of accelerators, plenty of VCs available in the market today. Couple of questions to start to, I would say, set the base for our audience today to understand. What is your biggest difference between you as a VC and accelerators? Because there is plenty of accelerators, and now digital health become actually so vibrant as a word. So all the accelerator now in Middle East started to say and digital health. Like they added one more line of like and digital health. So what is the difference between what you are providing today from an expertise point of view, and at the same time, which type of startup you are focusing on?
Sure. Well, thanks, Mohammed. So, as Hikma, as I mentioned, we're a generic pharma company, and Hikma Ventures is essentially the corporate venture capital arm of Hikma. And the difference between us and other independent VCs or even accelerators is basically, we're a strategic investor, and by that I mean that obviously the financial the financials or financial metrics do matter when we conduct analysis and due diligence, but at the end of the day, equally the strategic angle makes also basically has as much importance as the financial aspect. So at the end of the day, when we invest, we look at what's the value add that we can actually bring to the table. So when we sit on the boards of these companies that we invest in, we put them also kind of in touch with our if it's relevant, our R&D experts, our business development experts, our marketing experts, our technical engineering experts. So it depends on the field or the company that we're investing in. So they have resources to this big organization that can help them to grow. And secondly, Hikma could become a potential customer to these companies. So we're adding, another kind of, we're opening up this window of opportunity for them to act basically as a vendor to Hikma. Thirdly, I guess, for us, we don't know much about digital health, right? Like as an organization, it's these experts that we're investing in who know, the kind of the ins and outs of these technologies. So that was one of the reasons why we, established Hikma Ventures, is to actually plant seeds in these companies that can actually feed back this information to our organization. So for example, we feature these founders in some events that we have across the company. We open it up to all, Hikma, 8,000 Hikma employees. And, it's, I think, up to us as the venture arm. It's our responsibility to educate our colleagues about what's happening out there in terms of digital health technologies. So I guess, this is kind of the difference that we have, between us and other independent, VCs or accelerators out there. And in terms of our ticket size, it could range from as low as $100,000 and as high as $10 million. And we're solely focused on digital health, Mohammed. Like we're not a generalist fund. We specifically invest in digital health. Our aim is to grow this ecosystem, globally. We've invested in 12 companies so far, 10 in the US and 2 in Canada. And our aim, again, especially given that Hikma is the largest regional player in the Middle East, North Africa, is to bring these technologies to MENA. And we've actually about to announce our first strategic partnership with one of our portfolio companies. It's basically, a vocal biomarker company. And we're, partnering with them to co-develop the tool that they have for schizophrenia patients in the Middle East and North Africa. So these are the type of technologies that we're planning to bring to the region.
This is great, actually. And first of all, I know most of your investment is outside the region still, till today. And being a VC focused only in digital health as a terminology is quite new, actually, globally. It's not even here in the region alone, but it's in a global scale. It's a quite new. And even till today, really big pharma, they cannot differentiate between digital marketing and digital health. And those actually, it's one of the very interesting conversations. So maybe one of the things which is, I would like to get your opinion is, how do you define digital health versus digital marketing? Which is, I understand for you it's very easy, but surprisingly, till today, really big pharma, even they don't understand the difference. But also, it's very important today for the audience that they understand when we, as a pharma, say digital health, what does it mean? This is number one. Number two, how do you see the landscape today in MENA region for startups in MENA region focusing on digital health? Because I'm sure you're meeting a lot. What are the key gaps in this?
No, great questions. Thanks, Juaned. So in terms of the difference between digital health and digital marketing, the way I would phrase it is digital health is purely, about health tech, so healthcare technology, and digital marketing could be encompassed into that. So digital health is kind of like the overarching umbrella, if you will. And under that, you can, put things like telemedicine platforms that are patient facing. You can put, CRMs or, solutions that are trying to optimize customer relationship, management tools that are kind of more provider facing. It's anything that could, that pertains to patients, providers, all stakeholders, even pharma companies that could, either optimize or make, certain processes more efficient. So, one of the things within, the digital health umbrella is kind of remote patient monitoring. Another thing is, at-home diagnostics, and all of these actually technologies have become, more mainstream than they were pre, the pandemic. I think, a lot of them gained momentum, and a lot of people who didn't have much knowledge about these tools now are more aware of them. So that's kind of, the difference there. Digital marketing encompasses that. Like it's about basically, detailing, could be related to detailing doctors or physicians. It's, a way for pharma companies to reach, their customers, or, either patients, providers, etc., digitally, rather than, kind of using tools that are more archaic. So it's one of the things under digital health, in my opinion.
Do you think it's fair to say that actually digital health is more focused on tools which is able to generate data that can help you to create action or task, which will help you either to treat patient better, to interact better, or even have a better outcomes from a pharmaceutical treatment, or at the same time doing it. It's not about only sales, because today most of the startups, when they look at this, we create, as you said, like a better detail aid, which is not digital health. Digital health is more about finding out a better way of doing the current action, which is, as you said, remote patient monitoring, sensors, and all of those tech for me, but it's creating those stream of data. As a pharma, we are able to create a better decision, a much more efficient way, a much better outcome for patients. So is it fair to say it's in this way?
100%. That's a very articulate definition. I mean, I'm not an articulate person myself, but like you answered the question in a very good way. But yeah, I mean, we find a lot of companies in digital health coming up to make kind of the lives of patients much kind of easier, much more convenient for the patient to see the doctor, and then gathering these insights to kind of study the behavior of these patients to cater better products for them. It also acts kind of the same way when you look at providers, when you look at payers. So it really, digital health is not just about the patient. It's about kind of the patient journey, which includes payers or insurance companies, providers or doctors, pharma companies that are selling the medicine. So it's different kind of ways of doing things. And even within pharma, it could be as technical as helping a pharma company expedite their clinical studies, for example, or helping them come up with a better way to find which drugs would work on patients. So all of these digital tools, as you rightly mentioned, provide insights that can then through AI and machine learning can provide very valuable insights that can help improve the world.
So, Lana, how do you see the landscape today from digital health startups in Middle East and the MENA region in general?
I think we're still, unfortunately, way behind the Western world or the US, like North America and Europe. And a few years back when we started the fund, it was really in its infancy. But I think the pandemic really accelerated or expedited the growth of digital health. During the past 2 years, you can see a lot of companies coming up in terms of number of deals, or a number of companies that are either being established or are getting funding. You see, and that's both at a global level and regional level. You're finding a lot of traction with companies like At-Tibbi, for example, in telemedicine. So they're now partnering, or they partnered with the ministries of health in Jordan, and it just showcases how the pandemic helped educate the world in the region. Authorities, I think, were still kind of like skeptical when it comes to to these platforms, but now they're more open. They're partnering with them. They see that at the end of the day, patients now cannot go to the hospital or the doctor when especially when you have high corona cases and people kind of flooding hospitals for more urgent care. So now if you don't have anything that's urgent and can be done via telemedicine, you can just do that with your provider or doctor. So and anyway, like if you look at the younger generation, like I look at my nephews and nieces, they really value convenience. And that's why I think it's in digital health is really here to stay. It's just going to continue growing, and it's going to eventually become mainstream in the region. I know it's still early days, but I think we have a handful of very good companies that have been doing a very good job in coming up with technologies that cater to the MENA market. So it might be a model that already exists in North America, but they bring it here and they really customize it to fit the customers or the patients here.
Sure, it's a very good point. And Lana, when I spoke to multiple startups, I see two big issues, especially when we speak about digital health. Either one, that in MENA region, they don't understand the difference, so they don't have the knowledge about the topic. They are great engineers or great innovators. They come up with very nice idea, but they don't understand the regulations. They don't understand the industry itself. So they come up with a solution which, from their point of view, is great, but unfortunately is unviable for being used in pharma, for example, or patient support. At the same time, some other solutions, they simply go and let's try to build another Uber, you know. So they always go, what is working? Let's build 25 more Ubers. No one think of like, okay, what should be next? Like self-driving cars. They don't want to do this. So a couple of advices for them. And what are the areas which you feel it's empty today? What are the gaps in the market today? Despite, yes, you said, I can imagine there is plenty of startups focusing on, let's say, telemedicine. But I don't think there is a single startup focusing on clinical trial recruitment, for example, which is maybe 60% of investment of pharma globally is about clinical trial recruitment only, which none of them. So where do you see the gaps, and what do you advise them to do?
100%. I think, as you rightly mentioned, in telemedicine, it's pretty much congested. You have the wide offerings that include companies like Visita and Tibbi, where it's not just telemedicine or teleconsultations, also booking. They have a clinic platform offered to physicians to manage their patients. So there are a bunch of it's kind of a full suite of offerings, if you will. And then you have ones that are drilling down on the mental health aspect, which I think is extremely important. I think I'm a big fan of these companies. It's usually a taboo subject or stigmatized in MENA, because if God forbid, like if you tell anyone that you're seeing a therapist, then they'll mark you as a crazy person. But I think this culture is changing as the new generation is coming up. So I mean, definitely a lot of startups in the space, but I don't think anyone has yet kind of drilled down a model that actually works. There's the B2B option, there's the B2C option, and I think there's a lot of potential, but still, like different companies are kind of exploring different models that may work. The third one where we're seeing a lot of traction, I think it's an area that still obviously needs a lot of disruption. It's drug delivery platforms. So you have companies like Udawi, Shifa, there's Alma Health. So these companies I think are onto something, but still I think it's not going to be as easy as maybe other platforms, because sometimes in specific countries like Jordan, you can't easily just deliver medication. Maybe in the UAE they're far more advanced now. In Egypt it's kind of it's better to ask for forgiveness than ask for permission. But we'll see how things evolve. But the things that are lacking, I think, from the pharma point of view, I think clinical trials definitely is at least for us. We're really trying to find or work with our clinical team in MENA to find solutions for them when it comes to electronic patient reported outcomes in studies, or electronic clinical outcomes assessment, an electronic data capture EDC platform. So all these platforms we're finding in the West, not in our neck of the woods. And as Ras mentioned, like recruitment is another area. So I'm not sure sometimes, like when we asked the question, like I think the answer there was it's because regulations don't allow it specifically. Maybe there is something there, but I think there are kind of solutions where it allows kind of patient monitoring, capturing data when especially given that clinical trials are going virtual now,
decentralized
post-COVID.
Globally, and there is one single conference for decentralized clinical trials. It just happened last month, so yeah. It's true. Yeah. So, but again, it's what do you advise the startups to do?
If you think it's a great product, just make sure that you validate the product market fit, because it might be a great product in Europe or for the European market or the US market, but it might not actually work out in MENA. So just make sure that at the end of the day, this has can actually be a good product once you commercialize it in MENA. And also in terms of scaling, just always think for 2 steps ahead. If you start this company, or you decide to come up with a specific product, think about what are the barriers to making this scale, because at the end of the day, in the US, they have 300 million people living there, so they have a huge market. But when it comes to MENA, you're talking about 20 plus countries with different dialects, with different populations, different authorities. So it's not like you get an approval, or the product works in Egypt. You can easily scale it to the next adjacent country. That doesn't work. So there are many challenges that you have to think about, especially like when it comes to. I mean, now we're in the process, as I mentioned, of partnering with one of our portfolio companies, and when it comes to Arabizing the platform, what we use in Jordan is very different than what we use in Algeria, than what we use in Saudi. So it's incredible.
Yeah. It's true. And it's really impressive, Lana. Really, thank you. And my last point here as well, I would like even everyone here to understand there's huge opportunities in digital health. Digital health is maybe one of the most exciting topics now globally. It's still not in the Middle East as it should be. I think patients and pharma are looking for some solutions. So maybe a little bit more of reading what's happening outside, because as Lana mentioned during the conversation today, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. There are some solutions, there are some directions in the world, and there's tons of investment taking place. So maybe it's a very good idea is to start from there, see what's happening, see how this actually can be impacting. You don't need to reinvent it. You don't need to come with the new Uber of the world, and you don't need just to copy blindly. Make sure that if you come with a solution, make sure that it actually makes sense, not for the whole Middle East. It started by country, and make sure that it fits what the business need. Because if you are reaching out to a corporate or business accelerator in this case, or even business VC, it needs to be aligned of what is the investment. Maybe you have the best idea in the world, but it doesn't fit my company, so I will not change our organization's strategic direction because of one startup. So make sure that it fits, make sure that it makes sense, and read and see what's happening outside and see how this can be translated into the region here. Saying this, I want to again thank you, Lana, for this. It was great conversation. And if you have any question, please type it or share it with us.
Thank you.
All right, so you heard it from Lena Ghanem and Mo Force. We actually have both of them now backstage live. So we're going to jump into one last talk for this segment. Prasoon Mishra, again, an investor and someone who's very focused on clinical trials. And so he's going to tell us about the future, something Lana talked about. And then we're going to have all of them come with us backstage. So be sure to send us questions. And if you haven't applied yet, follow the QR code. Enjoy this talk with Prasoon. I'll see you soon.
Hey, Prasoon. So good to have you here, man.
Hey, Omar. Likewise. Yeah, great being here. Yeah.
Really appreciate your background. And I want to start with that. Like, I know you have a lot of exciting things going on. You have a deep passion for precision medicine. You come from a pharma background. And today we're going to be talking about what is next for innovation in pharma. And we're talking to a lot of innovators from Egypt and the Middle East that we have here today. And Sanofi is really interested in like pushing this innovation agenda, which you are at the helm of.
That's amazing.
So let's start. Yeah, tell us a little bit first about your background and your story that brought you here.
Yeah, so I think I'm over 20 years in this field. Actually, I started my journey in the field of precision medicine when the field was even not called precision medicine. We used to call the pharmacogenetics. That's what the name actually. And then eventually the field evolved to when omics arrived, pharmacogenomics, then tailored medicine, and which is, by the way, still the best name, right? Then individualized medicine, then precision medicine, individualized precision medicine. The word was coined just to take, into consideration digital health devices, medical devices, software as a, as a service kind of, and now software, are becoming also as a prescription, along with drugs, right? Actually, so I think, and overall, in the whole field, a lot is happening that will eventually, help us how to live a long and healthy life, actually, which has been my focus, rather than being reactive, actually. So yeah, I have spent majority of my time in academia. I was with Rutgers for a really long time, did a lot of academic research. Then I was with US government, National Institute of Health, National Cancer Institute, actually did a lot of, cancer drug discovery, high throughput screening to identify, drugs that we can bring to patients, actually, and did a lot of clinical trials, actually worked at the cancer centers, so we had bench to bedsides and bedsides to bench side, actually research, after patients were treated, obtaining their tumor samples and see if the drug is working or not, actually. Then from there, I transitioned to Genentech Roche, where I led their, oncology drug discovery efforts, as well as, phenotypic drug discovery efforts, actually using, robots, actually, robotic, automation driven, robotic process automation driven drug discoveries, actually. I used to be called a guy with a robotic hand, so but I think it's and eventually so we did, had a robot army running everything from cell culture to identifying the molecules. Yes, and then from there, I from the next chapter, I thought, where I can put a lot of my expertise to fruition, and we thought that there was a gap, actually. There was an ecosystem, there was a payer ecosystem, there was a provider ecosystem like hospitals, and there is a government, but there was a gap for nonprofit, and we came together, the ecosystem came together and formed American Association for Precision Medicine, that which is the goal is to bring these novel drugs and diagnostics to patients and help folks live longer and healthier lives. So yeah, and an overall goal is to accelerate the field of precision medicine and transform patient health. So that's it's
a big audacious goal.
Thank you.
And I love that.
Yeah.
And that's why we're here together, like to dream and engineer our dreams, right? Like create new realities, and that's the privilege that we have of this day.
Yeah, and collective future, right? Actually, the globe. What I believe and what I saw with precision medicine is the humanity overall becoming smarter, right? Rather than treating all the patients with the blockbuster drug approach, where everybody gets the same drug, and adverse drug reactions are a major concern, right? And then everybody is aware of that, actually. So now, how can we become smarter? And then you mentioned clinical trials, right? We are not only sparing the folks who will not respond, but we are also basically now increasing the success of clinical trials, because now we know which patients will respond and which will not. So you can just stratify responders, non-responders, toxic responders, right? Actually, so and then this way we can now pharma, like Sanofi, can have better ROI, because now they know what patient population their drug is working, so their drug diagnostics combinations can be developed together, right? Actually, and those programs can brought forward, actually, and then and these clinical trials would be now more successful, actually. So I think so I think that's the audacious goal, but it's the I think what I say is the real evolution of our intellect, actually, towards more smarter medicine, or precise medicine, or precision medicine, actually.
Yeah, and I love the way you broke that down, and I want to get into the weeds with clinical trials in a second. But first, let's define precision medicine. A lot of people may not be familiar with this, and I love the word that you use, tailored medicine. I had never heard of that before. But how can we define precision medicine in layman terms? Like what's the very basic definition that anyone can understand?
Yeah, so the precision medicine takes into account of patients' lifestyle, their genetics, genomics, as well as their environment, to basically understand their disease and treat them, actually. So more tailored medicine. That's the best definition, actually, that is out there right now. So.
So it's really personalized and customizable for a patient, rather than, as you mentioned, like we do a study and it fits like maybe 1,000 people, and we think that's a great clinical trial, but there are millions of people out there. So that are having like a specific disease, and each one of them reacts or has a different environment, has different biometrics, reacts to different things, right? So it's like it's like adding all these like data layers basically.
Yeah, so I think I think I can give you one example, right? So like we worked initially on population studies, and the whole vision of precision medicine evolved by bringing together like how, so there are different individuals, right? So different populations. So how can we do a population specific treatment, right? So kind of grouping individuals in these proper population groups based on their genomic profile, right? So for example, I worked on a SNP that predicted that that SNP was basically predicted response to a drug, and then we found out that SNP is basically so the folks that will have that SNP, they will be resistant to drug, and we figured out that one ethnic population had almost like majority of them, over 40% of them, 30 to 40% of them had that SNP actually. So that really makes a real precedent to basically, if that ethnic population presents, you just test for that SNP, and when that SNP is present, you don't treat them with methotrexate, which is one of very, very toxic, chemotherapy, right? So that's just one example actually of, and then you spare them, and then you treat them with some other drug that will be more effective, right? I think that's the hope that helped you kind of crystallize that vision actually. And now from there, that was the genomics base, right? When now we have moved forward, now government is doing, so all of us program, US government is doing, where they're recruiting healthy volunteers actually, and Google is doing, Google Verily is doing the project Baseline actually. This also similar, where they are monitoring healthy volunteers and in trying to figure out what makes them sick. So then now what we will do is we will kind of transition, after all these studies are done, we will have this massive data sets where we can really stratify what made people sick, and can we implement those behaviors, those lifestyle factors, those pollutants, those environmental factors, can we minimize those, or can we become more more aware of those and avoid those actually. So I think I like your background in Japan. Walking in a forest is not now a prescription. So we are basically we are pioneering this new era in medicine actually, and I think that would be more kind of will be more beneficial to patients actually. Yeah,
it's like where do we stand now compared to this great vision of precision medicine?
Okay, yeah. So I think
maybe you can like answer in terms of like the clinical trials and what you're seeing there.
Yeah,
you're at the spearhead of innovation, but what's reality looking like right now?
Yeah, so I think that's a very good question actually. So right now, precision medicine is a reality actually. That's, I can just confidently say now patients are going. So just to give you an example, oncology patient goes to the hospitals or healthcare systems, and there they are, tested for their genomic test is done, a biopsy is taken from the tumor, genomic test is done. The genomic test is telling, okay, these are the top genes actually. So for example, if it's a breast cancer, there's a BRCA1 positive. It's melanoma, there's a BRAF V600 positive. So, and based on that, we know what drugs to give to the patients actually. So this is now presently in the clinical practice in oncology realm, like almost all big hospitals are doing this actually. Some of them even have their own sequencing facilities where they are in-house processing. Some are using other outside folks, vendors, to do the sequencing and analytics actually. But this is right now happening actually. And so while and in some of the institutions are now compiling together all the omics data, so genomics, metabolomics, methylation data, because a lot of genes are not only mutation mutations are not the only reason the genes are silenced. Sometimes they are silenced because of methylation, the methylation marks actually. So I think how the methylation, I mentioned about the environment, like that's exposome. What is the exposome? Like what they are exposed to, right? Actually, if there is a if a specific zip code you live in, right? What are the and you can just see what are the how the exposome looks like. There is this project where we are also trying to develop that exposome data set. So if they all can be layered together, and then some of the hospitals are already working on it, and then you build a data stack actually. So with the existing, suppose 1 million patients, and every new patient comes in, we just run by the existing data stack and try to identify where this patient fits, what is the mutation, what are the drugs that will respond, what drugs the patient will not respond and should not be treated, right? Actually, so this is the vision, and then the reports can be sent to physician by digital health actually, and the promise of precision medicine can be delivered to the patients by the physician, that is right drug at right time, in the right route actually. So it's all happening, but so future is here, but it's not evenly distributed. That's my favorite quote actually. We have to scale it actually globally, so bring it to places like Egypt, Middle East, India, China, and we are as an organization now scaling ourselves and our efforts to to see if we can work with the local stakeholders to bring all the learnings that we have had in US, as well as the connects actually, and to help scale that in those regions actually. Yeah.
I'd love to leave the listeners with one piece of wisdom that you would like to give to someone who's looking to innovate in the area of clinical trials specifically, and perhaps precision medicine and AI. What is the top piece of advice that you would like to leave us with?
Yeah, so I think coming to the wisdom space, actually, I think people, folks, new entrepreneurs come to the healthcare, arena, thinking that they will disrupt the healthcare, right? That's what I always hear. I'm here to disrupt healthcare, actually, and then when they, dive deeper, they realize that the healthcare is very complex, actually, at least in US, actually, it's very complex, multi-layered, right? And being a physician, Omar, how you have witnessed those complexities firsthand, right? Actually, so it's a very complex system. So my advice to the new folks, the new entrepreneurs, and the promising faces of the future, to basically find your own niche. Actually, try to find a use case and do innovation around that use case. Like you mentioned, clinical trials, right? Clinical trial. So they have a lot of problems. So recruitment, right? Actually, the consent form, right? Actually, and basically, and then overall post monitoring, right? After the patient has taken the drug, and overall right now in after COVID times, we know that remote trials, right? Where you will just ship the drugs to patients, and then they will take the drugs, and then they will basically use some kind of a digital interface to record their experiences, and somebody and then all that data will go into a central repository where as a trial lead you can go and analyze that. So these are some of the new and emerging areas actually right now where innovation can be needed. So yeah, so find your niche actually, and then grow from there actually. So then if you do innovation in your niche, and then you collect more funding, then more partners and more success, then you grow from there and become huge actually. But I think the focus in the beginning is very important actually, to at least make it big in the healthcare sector actually.
That was a lot of information in a very short amount of time. I would like to welcome guests to the stage now. We have Lana and Prasoon, and hopefully Mo too. Yes, Mo, how are you guys?
Good. How are you?
It's so good to see all of you.
Likewise, happy to be here.
Good.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Lana, you definitely win the competition for the background. So, Mo, you're muted.
Muted. So if I'm telling you there is actual robot that will come and start
I
drawing
love Mo's
something on the
frustration
background
expressions.
for real, and then it remove it and then it start to draw. So that's why it's a very plain. So it's just a bit noisy.
Okay, until we see the prototype. Lana
I
wins.
was
Lana
telling
wins
you.
the competition until
Yeah.
we see it.
Thank you.
So we're here we're live from 4 different countries, right? I'm calling in from Cairo, Lana from Amman, Jordan, Prasoon from the Bay Area, California, and Mo from Barcelona, Spain. So we have a lot of opportunities for the listeners. Most of our listeners as Health 2.0 Egypt have been on the innovator side. So if you are out there, you have a company, now is your time to ask these people what investors are looking for, because all three are investors in different ways. Again, Lana is the managing director of Hikma Ventures, the biggest fund in the region. And then we have Prasoon, who just launched Wise, and he is earlier, like talked about precision medicine, so he has been leading AAPM, and now they are creating this major global vehicle with a Global Health Innovation Fund to invest in companies. And then, as I mentioned, Mo is running an accelerator, has started one of the biggest accelerators in pharma, has seen a lot of companies grow over the years. And so while the questions come in, I want to start off asking you guys, since this session is live and global, like how can local funds and global funds collaborate together? And we can pick any kind of person to start. But my question is, back to Lana's point, like sometimes we talk a lot about innovation in the region, but then how many startups are ready? So what is the value chain that we need to get through so that someone like Prasoon can invest in a place like Egypt ultimately? Lana, you're much closer, but I want to start with kind of the gap here. And Lana, I'd love for you to comment on this to get us started.
Yeah, sure. I think Omar, if you look at the different spaces in now in the startup world, you see that fintech, for example, is now at a much more advanced stage than digital health, and you're already seeing, I think, Sequoia already invested in a company in Egypt. So, I mean, there are kind of funds that are coming to the region, and I think it's a matter of time until they do, and it's up to us. Like I feel like as Hikma, we're a global fund. So actually, we've invested in 12 companies, as I mentioned, and all of them are North America, none are in MENA actually. But hopefully things will change in the next couple of months. But we've co-invested with so many, international investors, and during our interaction with these investors, now they're learning more and more about MENA. So for them, like MENA is just this kind of black box. Or was this black box in the past, but now when we speak to them and we tell them, oh, guess what, we're looking at these 3 companies in MENA, like one is a telemedicine company, one is in the mental health space, etc. It's piquing their interests. That's how I can phrase it for now. Like none have yet said, oh, we're ready to kind of put in money in the region, but they're like slowly but surely kind of becoming converts of like MENA is interesting, and they're beginning to get kind of digital health.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So Prasoon, same question for you. What would it take for you to invest in the region?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, and thank you, Lana, for sharing that perspective. Actually, I think, and that's why I think Omar, you mentioned about Wise, right? So that's one motivation behind Wise is to bring the global ecosystem together. It's world investors and entrepreneurs society, and we meet once a year actually. That's in a summit that will be in January, first week It's January 8th to 13th in San Francisco Bay Area, and around that time, the world's all investors are in San Francisco Bay Area. So I think that's when we meet. But then we also meet quarterly, actually. So all the regional entrepreneurs and investors are while they are talking to their regional companies, if they find, hey, this is one of the the technologies that needs a global stage, actually. So that's when they bring it to our quarterly meetings, actually. So the quarterly meetings, this is where we invite all our investors in our ecosystem, and they take a look at these startups. So this is just a closed meetings, only investors and the invited startups, actually. And then we also have built our own due diligence, actually, so we can even support the due diligence, and we are also raising our own fund, actually. We have had one fund, that fund one we invested. We are creating fund two, which is up to 100 million, actually. That will and it's a global fund, so I think it'll be, and that's the goal, to invest in global promising companies. And we are also we have also AAPM, as American Association for Precision Medicine, is raising a foundation fund, and it will be given out as as a grant, actually. So I think we are starting with 10 million, actually. So the goal is to bridge to support clinical trials. So there is a bottleneck when a company has to do a clinical trial. They go to investor, and investor says, hey, I want to see the data before I invest in you, and the entrepreneur wants the money to run the clinical trial. So I think there is a very that's where the companies stall most of the time. So we are launching this fund where we will give out grants, actually, to the startups, and then kind of bridge that a gap, so that now they are very much ready for the fund and for the investors in our network to basically able to confidently invest with the data in front of them, clinical data, trial data in front of them. And that basically now we have filled that void, actually. So yeah, I think that's the whole ecosystem, Omar, and I invite you all to be part of it, and and lead the revolution together. Yeah.
Yes, and we're definitely looking forward to having people like you kind of join us in the region and start understanding, helping us kind of bridge that gap, because I think we're able to have this communication now, and there shouldn't be a reason why we can't. But what do you think about that, Mo? When it comes to someone like Prasoon is raising $100 million fund, he wants to invest in the region, and you've seen so many companies in both America and Europe kind of go through different stages. When you look at the Egyptian market now, do you think it's ready for Prasoon?
So Egyptian always ready. Yeah. So yeah. So it depends on definition of what is ready, because I think in the case of Prasoon, he's not looking for like a $1.3 billion valuation. He's expecting, when he's doing the investment, of early stage and seeding. And I think it's a great opportunity if such a fund started to appear in the market, because what they will do in this case, they will be one of the early players, and early players will be able to shape the market where they want. And I think this is what will differentiate, and whoever will start, and in this case, like Hikma and Prasoon, if they come up with those funds and they started to shape the market as they want, they will be able to lead where the investment and what type of startups will appear in the market. I think what is missing is not like the market is not ready. What is missing is this database of the actual due diligence and acceleration programs that can be one layer before what is happening now, that kind of preparation of the startup to be able to sit with Lana or Prasoon and started to have a full conversation that makes sense from an investment point of view. I think the startups are ready. And I remember first time I met Omar, it was in an event in EUC, I remember, in Greek campus. And my message, it was, at this time I was in Novartis, I was telling them, like, the whole point that you are just running and doing exactly same startup, but 15 version of it. What about like all of those areas that all the pharma and all the investors are interested in, like clinical trials, recruitment, and a lot of areas? How about that actually you go there and start to speak to them and start building this? So if you are telling me now, is the market is ready? I think the market is in the perfect shape that it needs someone to shape them. And this normally is the biggest return, because if you look at putting 100 million in Bay Area is already 100 million is nothing. And exactly. And the market is already, and I saw when we were hiring for startups, like when we were getting our recruitment, the whole point, startups has like 15 options, so they choose. And most of the startups, they were with Novartis and at the same time with Google. So like the competition is different. So I believe there is an opportunity for Africa, there is an opportunity for Middle East and MENA region to start building what was Bay Area 15 years ago. So I think this is where those 100 million and 200 million is ready for the market.
Yeah, and our fund, we are thinking to make it evergreen, so it will never dry. So we just basically keep investing actually. So that's how we have done it. We already invested, now raising second institutional. So it'll be like the constant And one thing that we are also doing is we are also setting up local innovation centers. Actually, we have partnered with some of the great players in the field, and we are trying to set up innovation centers in Middle East, Africa, you mentioned, Canada, India, China, actually, Europe, and US. We already are in Silicon Valley. So I think this, what it will do is it will, like you mentioned, that it will identify the startups and also identify where their weaknesses are, and then fill that gap and try to, help them, prime for success. Actually, bring the right advisors and team members and stakeholders together to help them succeed. Actually, and that's when pharma like Sanofi, and other big players, they can come in, because now they can, now they are not investing, but now they are giving them projects and they are delivering, and then they are basically now getting paid for the projects actually, and that also serves for them proof of concept that a major player has already tried their product. So I think that's the amazing value proposition that whole ecosystem brings actually.
Okay, that's a very interesting discussion, and we've established that Egypt is ready as always, and that we can kind of shape what the innovation is next with someone like you, Rasoon. But we have a very interesting question from one of the founding members of Health 2.0 Egypt, actually. And it's kind of like the elephant in the room always. And Lana, I'm curious to know what you think about this. So the question is about infrastructure. So then this is Omar Zeki from TechCrunch in Austin, Texas, and one of the founding members of Health 2.0 Egypt. And he's saying, it's more of a comment, but be innovation-led entrepreneurs, not imitation-led. So speaking of like going and replicating Silicon Valley, obviously we have to deal with our challenges. And he outlines these challenges as infrastructure and regulation, right? That would facilitate doing things that we may not be able to do. And I think now we're starting to talk about regulation when it comes to telehealth, but we still don't have that in the region. So Lana, how does that impact you think how many companies you're able to invest in every year or every period?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting comment or question, but I mean, from our end, we obviously look at the most important thing, obviously depending on the business, but the number one thing that we look at in digital health is clinical validation. If we look at digital therapeutics, remote patient monitoring, etc., like that's the number one thing. We as a fund don't like to invest in kind of wellness apps that are not backed by clinical data. Where there are many of them, globally, not just in the region. But I mean, in terms of regulations, I think it's tricky. Like, at the end of the day, we can't just wait for authorities to catch up and decide to make certain rules and regulate certain areas. I think, and I mentioned it in my talk, like it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. That's the way I think people should operate. Otherwise, like, there will be no disruption, and eventually, the authorities, governments, etc., they will all catch up once they see the value. And we've seen that. Like, imagine if we didn't have telehealth companies prior to COVID. Imagine if there was no Atibbi, no visitas, etc. Like, all of these companies helped a lot during COVID. And, fortunately, the governments, unfortunately, they worked with them once the pandemic hit. But if they weren't there, imagine what would have happened. I think, they facilitated, or they've enhanced convenience. They've made it easier for patients to see doctors from the comfort of their homes. I think it's a matter of time before drug delivery or e-prescriptions become a norm. I know in Egypt there are a handful of companies, in the UAE as well. At-Tibbi now is I think also planning to get into that route or into that space. But I think all of these technologies are going to become mainstream. It's just a matter of time, and we can't just wait, for regulation to change or to be actually invented in these spaces. So we like, at the end, I'm all for these startups disrupting the space, and just doing what they do best until everyone else catches up.
Yeah, and the regional imitation, if there is a regional need, I think there is room for innovation. Actually, that's because a lot of you see a lot of Chinese companies, right? They were not the first, but I think they are now catering really big market in China actually. Whereas the global players, it will take them long time to establish their foot in China actually. So I think there is a lot of room for regional innovation, and then we all learn from each other, right? Actually, I think that's how we evolved. So I think you don't want to wait to support your local community, hoping for some global player will come 20 years later from now, right? So you just get in and roll your sleeves and do your job right now. Actually,
It's a good point, and actually, global players don't come anymore like by themselves. They need to find the startups in the market, and then they will acquire them. So they don't do it themselves, because all the global player stopped already the fact that they start business themselves in new regions. They want to go to find the startup who already made it, and then they will acquire, which is a good opportunity for exit as well. And you saw this with Sue, with Uber, with all of them. So no one anymore want to build something from scratch. From a regulatory point of view, and I think we're lucky in Middle East, because if you look at, there are three patterns in Middle East, sorry, not in Middle East, but like globally for health. You have the US pattern, which is try everything, and you have European pattern, which is don't try anything, and you have the Middle East one, which is like whatever it takes. So those three patterns are very interesting, and Middle East is the one that exactly, and I love what Lena said. Actually, it's more about like ask for forgiveness, so they will allow you to do it if you are not touch specific areas, and healthcare will never touch it. So in my point of view, I believe most of the government are very open, and even if you look today in UE, after there become a couple of startups and companies about telemedicine, they are working with startups to shape the telemedicine regulation. So you can see that whoever will start early will be able as well to support the shaping of the regulation. And this is what happened with Kareem, for example, that they shaped this. So, and in many conversations in different areas, health and non-health, government were very open of conversation, despite we always have the impression that it doesn't. They normally don't care, but actually they care, and they are very open now, especially if you look at Egypt, for example. The government today has a straightforward regulation that they would need to support a startup to be the leading in Africa. So it's a direct, rules now. So however startups comes, real investment comes with nice ideas, not a copy of an delivery system for pharmaceuticals. I think all the government will be open to help them to succeed. And I see it as an opportunity.
Awesome. Yeah, I think we hit up on a lot of different things, and it's sometimes just very disheartening when you see a lot of the regulations move innovation very fast, and it's important to remember that we can actually be the change. It's just sometimes a lot harder here than in a place like the States.
Yeah, and also the opposite is also true, Omar. Actually, in states, sometimes regulations are too much, and it's not that much regulated in some of the other regions, right? Actually, that's where innovation also can be, brought forward, because there is a lot of data regulations around, in US, HIPAA compliance. Like we have really, some things it will take for us something that we take take a take over. I think it'll take us some time, but I think at your end, if the regulations are very very fluid around that, then I think there is an opportunity also to partner. Actually, I think so. That's that way we can partner together and get the clinical data, clinical trial data. I think and work around that actually. So both sides are true, Omar. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good for me to remember. Sometimes you stay in Egypt for too long, you get a little cynical. But to I'd like to read.
Yeah, opportunities actually. Yeah, opportunities
also,
always. Yeah, focus. Yeah.
Yeah. So before we end this section, I just wanted to ask you one last question. It's I want you to choose a number. So let's imagine that we are talking 2 years from now, and you are looking at your portfolio companies, because you all have portfolios now, and I want you to tell me, like, how many companies would you imagine or would you like to have from Africa and the Middle East in your portfolio?
I think if we're talking about 2023, like in 2 years' time, we currently have 7 active portfolio companies. Um, I would say, out of 15 to 20 companies, I would like to have at least 4 in MENA. So almost a quarter of the portfolio.
Yeah, and we are, as I mentioned, we have this Africa initiative where we are we are partnering with accelerators in Africa and actually investing early stage in not only in innovation but also trying to accelerate the existing companies. So I think I would say maybe a good number will be 10 actually, 10 to 15 actually early stage investments. Yeah.
And Mo.
No, we don't like our focus in current accelerator on is Europe. And to be honest, I think as it was shared in my conversation with Lena, that it's what's a pity that most of the focus today in the Middle East is focusing on a very commercial based. So today we are not looking at this as part till we start seeing this change. So we are really looking at those type of accelerators that can push the market to create things which has a straightforward impact on our model. And I think this is where we will be able to see startups moving and compete. So, and again, one thing for all who listen to us, your market is the whole world, especially when it comes to digital health. It's not Egypt is not Middle East alone, because one right technology for patient recruitment for clinical trial will be used everywhere in the world. It will not be used in one single place.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. This brings us to the end of the second section. So a lot to digest, a lot to think about. I really appreciate your presence with us and the time you've put into this symposium. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. Great talking. Bye.
So up next, I will be having Dr. Jalil Al-Abedi, CEO of Al-Tibbi, and we're going to be talking about providers. So hang in there, and we'll be up in 10 seconds. All right, so we are getting into the final stretch of things. Welcome, Jalil. Oh, we have a sneak. They ruined my surprise. They ruined my surprise. Hey, Jalil, how are you?
Hi, Omar. How are you? Can you hear me well?
Good. I'm very excited for this last section. Yes, I hear you really well.
Good.
I'm excited for 2 reasons about this last section. One is because we're bringing in some of the trailblazers of innovation, both Al-Tibbi and Udewi have done a lot of work, and as Lena just mentioned, like the presence of Al-Tibbi, it just gives us a lot to reflect back to some of these global investors when we're talking on behalf of all of the ecosystem. So it's really good to have an entrepreneur, someone who we've been talking about, and you are the actual person that's making it happen. But also the fact that we're going to talk about doctors and how to engage healthcare providers, which is a very exciting topic for both of us. We have it kind of in common. So thanks for being here, and thanks for giving us both a doctor, an engineer, and an entrepreneur.
So I'm not a doctor. I'm in the medical field, but I'm actually an engineer. But I'm
Oh, you are an engineer. I've always thought that you were Dr. Jalil.
Well,
we're living in a world where there's so much intersection of this industry, and it's really hard to know what people's backgrounds are. No one believes that I'm a doctor. So it's fair. You look more like a doctor than me.
I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah. So Jalil, let's start by talking a little bit about healthcare providers, especially because you guys are working on so many levels now. You're creating so many partnerships between Al-Tibbi and different governments and different regions. You are accessing a lot of patients, but I'm curious to know, how are healthcare providers leveraging that technology now, and kind of what are the trends that you're seeing in terms of how healthcare providers use Al-Tibbi?
Yeah, it's again, it's a very difficult topic to talk about, because HCPs in general are normally known to be anti-technology, and it's normally difficult to engage with. Yet, we have been engaging with doctors almost since the inception of Al-Tibbi, which was almost 10 years ago now. We started Al-Tibbi as a content platform, so we initially started writing our own content, but soon enough we started allowing patients to ask questions for free, and we started also asking doctors to come in and participate in answering these questions and writing articles, etc., to enhance the patient's experience. So as Al-Tibbi, we're always geared towards providing the best access to care and information to patients. So we were asking doctors to come in and participate in that. And of course, it wasn't an easy proposition. We're talking about 2012. Technology was barely coming into the region, and you're telling doctors who are known to be anti-tech to hey, come in, participate for free, come into their stack. And yet we managed to think about what would doctors want to come in for free, instead of paying them money or paying them the trips and the gifts, etc. So we had to really build a platform in the back end that would encourage them to be on the platform and participate in content and gamify that experience. Doctors by nature are just competitive people. Again, I'm an engineer, so I'm allowed to say that. You guys, as being a doctor, are very competitive. They're normally the first in class at school, the first in class in university. They're always they are always the best. So we tried to create that kind of environment in Al-Tibbi, whereby the more you participate, the more points you get, the more badges you get, and you're called the expert doctor, then you're the best doctor, etc. As long as you are active and helping patients, providing that content and answering questions, etc. That was really good, actually. It was a very good experience engaging with doctors, understanding those inner motives and working around them. And today on Al-Tibbi, we have about 18,000 doctors who are registered, verified, and are active with content on Al-Tibbi, which was great. But then we took it up a notch. We launched our telehealth offering, and there we needed to get GPs on board, and we needed to really control the experience so much. So that was a new learning curve for us, and getting GPs and working with them, providing the best experience that is super controlled at a very fixed price, etc. So it was a new learning experience that brought us to what today is Al-Tibbi Academy, basically, and a system of courses, of medical courses that have been accredited by the Royal College of General Practitioners in the UK to accredit doctors as they get into the telehealth experience. So again, our engagement with doctors have been multifaceted, different levels with specialists and GPs and different kinds of engagement. So it's still a learning curve where we're learning as we go, but we're loving it.
You will never figure us out. You'll never figure us out completely. And doctors, I appreciate what you said about but about being like competitive in nature. A lot of people think that doctors are looking for the best technology out there, or the most interesting technology out there. But really, I think doctors are always looking for mastery, as you mentioned. So mastery and time. And if you can give them more mastery, like you said, or give them more time, they will love you, provided you don't mess with their workflow. So I want to shift a little bit and ask you another question about how. So one of my experiences as a physician was getting burnt out, even as a med student, and then I learned now like the whole world is talking about physician burnout, and technology is a big part of it. Like when we even look at electronic healthcare records, there's direct correlation. Like the studies show it, and it's very, very obvious that the more doctors use technology, actually, the more we sometimes get burnt out or sometimes lose steam. Yeah. So how does a company or even even a pharmaceutical, reaching out to these doctors, how do you balance that?
It's actually a real problem and a real issue, and we noticed that starting with our GPs. We're our utilization rate for GPs on our telehealth platform is close to 90%, which means basically that a GP gets on the app, puts that he or she is online, and they start getting calls one after another. And for the time they're online, 90% of their time is actually being used in consultations, which is pretty, I mean, pretty frustrating, if you think about it. So the way we wanted to make it easy, we at the beginning we were asking doctors to get on the consultation, do the consultation, and fill the SOP of the patient. Fill the symptoms, the diagnosis, the treatment plan, and they had to write all of that. And then immediately and in the meantime, they're getting notifications that there's another consultation. They got on the consultation, and then they have to fill that, and it was really frustrating. And we were getting a lot of feedback from our doctors that was really burning them out. The way we opted to deal with it was actually to add even more technology. So basically, we started using all the data that we had, all the AI know-how that we had, to really help doctors make the best decisions possible, not forgetting anything, not compromising quality because of the stress of getting on calls, etc. And at the same time being as efficient as possible. So now instead of writing or typing, the AI is suggesting the symptoms. The doctor is just validating and validating the diagnosis, validating the treatment plan. So the doctor is still the ultimate source of truth, but AI is trying to help to make that experience less frustrating for the doctor, yet not compromising on quality, it's a very fine line. You don't want them to be just clicking anything and just to get through to the other call. You want to maintain that quality. So AI is really being helpful. And actually, we're now working on a research paper with Harvard Medical School about the use of AI in ultimately providing better health outcome to our patients, and that's through providing better help to doctors and providing that better outcome to the patients.
That's an awesome use of AI. Very empathetic use too, and I want to stop here for a second, and I totally imagine this doctor being bombarded. Like I was just sitting with a friend of mine, and the WhatsApp and phone just doesn't stop ringing, and it's almost like we can't have a full dinner. So I love what you're doing there, and I I want to invite Dr. Jacqueline now to tell us a little bit about MedSynapse. So let's go to her presentation, but hold on with me, Jalil, because we'll bring her back in and continue our discussion.
Of course.
So thanks for that. And
good evening.
Dr. Jacqueline, you have the stage.
I'm Dr. Jacqueline Simons. I head the customer success team at MedSynapse. And to briefly introduce myself, I'm a practicing doctor, and I now help companies innovate and grow in the realm of healthcare. So with MedSynapse, my role basically is to help companies engage with HCPs, ensure that the project objectives are met, but at the core of all, keep HCPs at the center of all things, so that we can ensure success for the project, but also ensure that HCPs are getting the information they need to enhance their clinical outcomes and their patient satisfaction as well. So the core of today's presentation will be focusing on how to engage with HCPs, and let's delve down right to it. So a brief about MedSynapse itself. So MedSynapse is a platform to engage healthcare providers. It is a community for healthcare providers. Currently, we are working in the Southeast Asian region, the Middle East region, as well as Africa. Now, all members of the platform are verified doctors, and only doctors whose accounts are verified get access to the platform and their account is activated. So here on the slide, you see what doctors need, right? Why do doctors want to engage on a platform such as this? What information is it that they're looking forward to? So basically, they want to connect and collaborate. They want to understand what's happening in the medical field, understand healthcare policy updates, what are the latest happenings in terms of approvals, in terms of treatment protocols and guidelines, as well as they want to collaborate with their peers. They want to understand what their colleagues, what thought leaders in the space have to talk about, understand best practices, and follow them in their clinical settings as well. In this respect, they want to engage in clinical discussions, also increase their influence in the digital sphere, right? So they want to engage, communicate, increase their influence, and become guides and mentors for other doctors as well in the long run. They want to access news updates, continued medical education modules, as well as treatment protocols and guidelines. Moving on, some of the areas that we've seen a lot of traction happening on the platform are doctors are looking to engage in a community space that is safe, that is closed, where they can engage with their peers, where they can voice out their concerns, their challenges, their informational requirements, and where they can educate and learn. Like I mentioned, also another significant areas that HCPs are looking to kind of grow their influence in the digital sphere is, they want to become thought leaders, influencers in the digital medium, go to the point of becoming a rising star, and ultimately the aspiration is to become an opinion leader. So by engaging with their peers, communicating and expressing their experience and sharing their knowledge, that's where they ultimately want to see themselves. Now, talking a little bit about marketing products in the digital space, right? Now, we know that in the last 1.5 years, digital marketing has gone from a good to have to a must have. So there have been a lot of traditional and conventional ways of marketing in the digital space. But what we need to understand is what one company has, their competitors have it too, right? So there is a lot of information that's being thrown out at HCPs. So how likely are they to read into your particular message, right? So to understand that, we need to comprehend that the messaging or the way of messaging needs to be unique. It needs to be remarkable. It needs to be differentiated. Only then is it possible to, stand out in the crowd. Now, what we propose generally, based on our experience interacting with the HCPs, is that what we refer to as the purple cow approach, or being remarkable, right? It's whatever you put across to your HCPs, it has to be worth talking about. It has to be worth noticing. It has to be exceptional. It has to be new and interesting, right? The traditional way of discussing things, of yelling out to the customer, of hopping on the same things over and over again, it's not going to work. So moving on a little further, just to give you a sense of what is it that I'm speaking and where I'm coming from, right? So we need to understand that we need to build the doctor base first. So MedSynapse is a platform we're actively engaging doctors in Southeast and East Asia and as well as the Middle East region. These are some of the numbers that we're looking at, and I believe the numbers speak for themselves. So we see a monthly retention rate of close to 65%. We see unique sessions of around 5,000 to 6,000. We see new registration of doctors upwards of 3,600 and an average time spent per session of 5 minutes 24 seconds on the platform. Now, what is it that doctors are doing during this time that they spend, right? So if you have to talk about content in terms of needs, we can see that I would primarily see that content can be divided into timeless content and contextual content. Now, if we're talking about timeless content, it refers to the appeal of content across age groups, across geographies, and across time frame, right? So this type of content predominantly includes guidelines, treatment protocols, challenging case management, healthcare policy updates, drug approvals, all of the like, right? But if you're looking at it from a contextual point of view, it refers to a particular context. So the best example I can give here that everybody can possibly relate to is pre-COVID and post-COVID, right? So every content that's been coming out post-COVID, there is some element of COVID related to it somewhere, right? So if you look at the timeline per se, we can see that initially it was more about management of COVID, management of the sequelae, and later on, possibly in the second wave of the disease, we saw a lot more discussions about antifungal treatment, particularly mucormycosis. And later on, once the vaccines came into play, it's about assessing which one was most beneficial. So in terms of solutions, what is it that we offer? In terms of how can our pharmaceutical clients add more value to doctors? First of all, we have the brand connect, which is nothing but raising awareness of the brand. But herein, what needs to be remembered is not just to keep the brand messaging at the core, but to understand at a very basic level what doctors are looking for in that particular therapy area or indication and align that with the objective of the brand itself. So what I mean to say here is understand the consumption patterns of doctors themselves, right? So if you're looking at a doctor who is possibly a younger doctor, then to understand from their mindset what they're looking for, they tend to be more technologically savvy, right? But however, you need to remember that because they're tech savvy, their attention is spread across different platforms and different applications. So the amount of time that you have with the doctor is very limited. So it's necessary to customize the content in a manner that grabs your attention within that particular time frame. Secondly, if you're engaging more with mid-career doctors, they want to disseminate information, share their experience, and that's wherein you will see the huge chunk of them. And finally, your KOLs and veterans, they tend to comment less, they tend to engage less on content, but they're more prone to giving interviews, engaging on panel discussions and webinars, and that's the way to engage them best. The second one, of course, here we see the launchpad. This is more to do with launching a product, but here it is important that before you go into launching a product and talking about the molecule itself, it's very important to ensure that you have a followership, a base. So how do you do that? So pre-launch activities in this sense play a very important role where you're establishing yourself as a thought leader, show doctors that this is the content that provides them with the utmost value, and they'll be sure to come back for more. And once you've established that advocacy among them, you've established proponents among the doctors themselves, you will be able to provide your brand message much more easily. The acceptance levels also will be that much more higher. So overall, what I would like to convey here is as key messages in terms of reaching out to doctors is to ensure that we provide content that doctors are looking for, keeping them at the center of all things, and also understand that content marketing campaigns are not a one-off thing. So you cannot do them sporadically. It is a long-term commitment. Normally, we recommend it anywhere between 9 to 12 months. So that's when you can see real results. It takes time, it takes efforts, but the results will come.
All right. So a lot of information here about how to engage doctors, and I want to remind you all that this is one of the challenges that Sanofi is actively looking for, that is launching this campaign on. What Dr. Jacqueline was just talking about, and earlier I was talking with Jalil about how to engage healthcare professionals is something Sanofi is looking for. So definitely check out the QR code to the bottom right of the screen and apply if you haven't yet, if you have an idea or are working on a platform. Dr. Jacqueline, welcome to the stage.
Yeah, thank you, Omar. Hello, Jalil.
Hello, Jacqueline.
Yeah, plenty of information there for us to start thinking about. And one of the things I want to ask you guys, so we heard, Altibi is one of the biggest regional players. They're providing technology for doctors to help them in how they treat patients. And Jacqueline, MedSynapse is actually, engaging doctors in a different way, right? You're engaging doctors by giving them content, like you mentioned, the purple cow that is boom, like gets you and like captures the heart of the doctor, right? With information. You mentioned a lot of areas that doctors are really looking for, like what are the new therapies, what are the new regulations, especially during COVID, what are the best practices? And so my question for both of you is, what is one of the biggest learnings that you learned over engaging with doctors? And as I was just talking to Jalil, we're not the most straightforward ones. So what is something that you started? What's an assumption, I guess, that you had about doctors, and then after a few years of your company, you realize, that's actually not right. So tell us one of the myths maybe that we think is true, and whichever one of you is ready to go first can start.
Go ahead, Jacqueline.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Jalil. So I would say I think a lot of times, people have said that doctors are not very technologically savvy, right? So I would say probably a little laggards when it's compared to other industries, I would say. But from what we've seen on the platform, that isn't always true, because as long as you're giving them very relevant content, you're giving them reasons to come and stick around, they will do that. So for example, what we've seen is, and I think some of the topics that we've seen, of course, I've discussed, about contextual content and as well as timeless content. But in addition to that, some of the other areas where we've seen a lot of traction happening is the social aspect of it, right? So like you rightly mentioned, the physician burnout, and I think you also had, given a talk on that on MedSynapse, right? So that is one area. Management of stress, I think that's very apparent during recent times. Surprisingly, a lot of trending topics. For example, we had a recent content that mentioned about, should doctors invest in cryptocurrency, right? So things like these of interest to doctors or tourist destinations. So keeping that social angle in mind and providing them content that is relevant to them. For example, even from a geography perspective, what we saw is that some geographies, especially, for example, Vietnam, Thailand, and certain areas in the Middle East as well, they require the translation because they're more conversant in the vernacular language, or when we're providing content to them for patient education, right? So that content available in their local languages, that definitely helps them. So actually understanding the mindset of doctors and ensuring that we cater to them, like I mentioned, keeping them at the center of all things, that does away with the myth that they don't want to come online. And of course it differs from the kind of devices they use, the kind of age group they belong, so that may differ, but ultimately it's about giving them value, right?
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree that. And cryptocurrency for doctors is not so far-fetched. Doctors getting like autonomy and control over their finances also is an interesting aspect. Jalil, what do you think? What's one of the biggest learnings over your time with Altibi?
I mentioned it before. For me, the myth was that doctors are completely rational, and then I discovered that they can become very competitive.
Yeah, that's a
one.
myth worth mentioning twice.
So judgment
Jalil,
coming from an engineer, So
yes, well, I mean, we know you guys are easy to judge too, so it's okay. We can judge each other. So Jalil, what's next for Altibi when it comes to what you're providing? So I understand that you guys had the clinical management system early on, right? And then you branched into telemedicine, and now you're one of the few companies in the region to be publishing papers about AI. And you and I talked about that before. But what's next in terms of like how you're going to start adding value to doctors to keep using Al-Tibbi?
I mean, our focus is definitely different than MedSynapse. Our focus is at the end of the day to provide better quality of care to the patients, and we want to engage doctors to be part of that journey. So it has been a different kind of challenge. We're getting these doctors not to read content for themselves, but we're getting these doctors to engage to write content for patients. So it's a bit of a kind of a flip. Yes, we started with the clinic management system, and today we have close to 5,000 doctors in Egypt alone on that, and they're engaged. The engagement levels are great. It's very sticky, you know, when they start putting patient data on that, etc. The value again that we bring to doctors in that case, it is all about saving them time, helping them make better decisions the whole time. But ultimately, we're capturing that data to also support patients. So this is what we're after. You know, we're collecting that data to continue the journey and support patients. But along the way, definitely, we have to think of the incentives for doctors to be part of that. So this is the way we think about it.
Awesome. And so, you know, this is one of the biggest challenges. You both have cracked it in your companies, like how people can engage engage doctors. Do you think like are there any areas or any pieces of advice you'd like to leave startups with that you know want to kind of go in? Like, are there any areas that you see are a need, but neither of you know have the capacity to fill, for instance? Or what should the next like company that's focused on healthcare providers, you know, be doing? Or what areas can be fundable in this region?
I don't know fundable, but I think the next wave will be about creating more niches for doctors. So, you know, having networks towards focused on specific specialties that are more difficult to crack, that need specific kind of support and you know, it's very different. You know, when you talk about the big specialties, that's one thing, and then you start getting into the subspecialties. That's where things become a bit more tricky. Yet there's a lot more need for that. Definitely, pharma would love that, and I don't know how fundable that is, but I know there's a lot to be done there, and a lot of value that can be extracted or unlocked, better than extracted.
Yes, I agree, Jalil. And you, Dr. Jacqueline, one final parting words to entrepreneurs just going into the HCP space or trying to engage HCPs. What areas are exciting?
I would say what I think it was previously mentioned in some of the talks as well. Clinical trials and recruiting patients, although it does happen in a lot of areas, I would say in the westernized world, but yes, in certain geographies that is not happening as much as it should. And I think that's a huge area where doctors are interested and they want to kind of get into that space. So platforms that can provide that to doctors, I think that would be something interesting to observe in certain regions. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much for this segment. It's close to heart and it's close to Sanofi's heart too. It's a big reason why they're creating the symposium. So I hope people have taken some notes, because there's so much information and think moments of inspiration for me. And again, don't forget to sign up with your idea going to that QR code. But Jalil, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure talking to you, man. And I look forward to so much more. Thanks for paving the way for all of us. It's really good to see you and your progress. And Dr. Jacqueline, it's a pleasure connecting with you. Thanks for all that information.
Sure.
Take care, Omar.
Pleasure being here. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, so now we are going into the final segment of the night. In 30 seconds, we will have a talk with another trailblazer, Karim Khashaba, CEO of Udewi, and he's going to be interviewed by Nashwa Nashat, who has a long-standing history in pharma and innovation in pharma specifically, and she's also the CEO of Nexus eHealth. So without further ado, I'd love to welcome Nashwa and Karim to the stage. Nashwa, kick it off.
So good afternoon, everyone. It's really my pleasure to be here today. A very interesting forum, so thanks for the invitation. And it's really my pleasure to moderate the upcoming session about one of most interesting topics to my heart. It's the next generation patient support programs. And when we talk about pharma, one of the hottest topics nowadays are the patient support programs. So I'm really so excited about this session, and especially moderating it to one of the eminent healthcare technology leaders in Egypt and outside Egypt, Karim Khashaba, the founder and CEO of Udewi. So Karim, would you please introduce yourself more?
Thank you, Nashwa. Thank you, Omar, for having me in this forum. So I'm Karim. I'm the CEO and founder of Udewi. I'm a computer scientist by education. After my computer science studies and studying and working for a couple of years, I decided to switch careers and move to management consulting. So I joined Booz & Company initially in Munich for a few years and then Dubai. And then since 2016, I've been in Egypt, pretty much focusing on the family business, and then later kind of started Udewi, which is a pharma platform basically that connects pharmacies, insurance companies, and obviously offers the consumers a much easier way to order and use their insurance card.
So if I talk about 10 years back, the patient support program as a concept used to be the patient affordability programs or the patient access programs, what the companies can do for patients to enhance or facilitate getting the medications or getting it with different prices or access models. And this sometimes it's a company initiative, and sometimes it's regulatory requirements that the company has to do to implement it and to control it as well, because PSP, as we all know, one of the most sensitive in terms of compliance as well, especially for pharmaceutical industry. So it has to be very well controlled. And after that, we started to hear different patient support programs strategies and the designs, which is customizing some services around the patient needs. But still, it's around the medication, the disease area, or in terms of different, according to the therapy area, to the patient, to as well the budget that the pharmaceutical company wants to spend in this regard. And Karim, if I was just reading an article by Fierce Pharma that was published 2 months ago, and it said that patient support programs nowadays are one of the most or the highest area of spend for pharmaceutical companies. So in average, multinational companies spend around $5 billion annually for patient support programs. However, it also mentioned that only 5% of the targeted patients get benefit from these PSP. And this was a little bit, we were chatting about this topic, and I want to hear from you your point of view for this, why it's so important, why it's pharma now are willing to invest more in this area, and why only 5% of patients are able to get the benefit of patient support program. So the floor is yours.
Thank you for the intro, Nashwa. So first, maybe a first caveat, bear in mind, it's a computer scientist looking at patient support programs. So I can only kind of give you the assessment from my vantage point, and give you maybe the kind of the impression I got from the interactions we've had with pharma companies over the last 2 years here in Egypt, more specifically. I don't actually have experience outside of Egypt on this topic specifically. So is there a need for patient support program? Absolutely. So if you look at a country like Egypt, where out-of-pocket spend on healthcare is more than 60%, right? Means people are pretty much paying themselves for healthcare. It makes sense, right? Either you have an insurance card, or you have some form of program that's covering your medical expenses, or you don't. And if you don't, you can either afford your treatment, or again, you don't. And I think there's a very big segment here in Egypt that needs access, affordable access to medications that otherwise they would not be able to get access to. And that's kind of the very simple reasoning as to why these programs have to exist. Now, the need is there. I believe the execution from the pharma companies to this day is still at kind of the first level, let me put it this way. I think generally it was approached either as at least you can see it was built up over time as a quick marketing initiative, or a quick kind of project-based, team-based initiative, as opposed to more of a holistic company strategy, more of a platform approach. And so if you ask me, the problem set itself already exists in other industries. It's just that the pharma companies, I think to this day, are still approaching it in a different way. And more specifically, for patients to be able to access medications and get subsidies on these medications, or any kind of financial support, is already a problem that was solved by insurance companies. And so pharma companies really don't need to reinvent the wheel there. There's a network of medical providers, whether it's kind of pharmacies or investigation centers, lab and radiology, that offer services to a specific subset of patients at a discounted price, at a subsidized price, or whatever. And there's some form of financial reconciliation with whoever the payer is. Could be a pharma company, could be someone else. And so really kind of this process infrastructure has already actually exists in Egypt in many for insurance companies. And it's one of the things that Udeo is actually doing for insurance companies at the moment. Instead of the pharma company having to go and agree with a certain population of doctors to enroll the patients, or give them some form of token or identifier to be able to enroll, and then go contract a third-party teleconsultation or a call center service that the patient needs to call, and then go to a network of medical providers in order for the patient to get the service, and agree on some reconciliation process by which the patient gets some discount that the medical provider is able to claim later. All of this can be connected into one digital platform, where basically you have a platform like Udeo, or like any other kind of digital startup in the ecosystem, that can connect pharmacies, can connect doctors, can connect the patient himself, and has the back office capabilities to carry out complicated calls at scale, that can follow inclusion criteria and apply them on behalf of pharma companies. And so in my view, kind of we can take and almost replicate all the know-how, all the process infrastructure of insurance companies, and apply it to patient support programs. And what is left there is then the personalized communication that comes on top, which I will dare say, and maybe a lot of people will not be happy with me, but based on the programs that I've seen so far, it's a lot of the kind of communication plans that are attached to patient support programs are just either too irrelevant, too big, not personalized for the patient himself, end up being a little bit mechanical, a little bit irrelevant. You feel like a call center agent has to deliver or read out a message. It's not, in my view, fitting of something that's happening in 2021, almost 2022 now. So a lot of the content, in my view, can be delivered through digital. You can send people YouTube links and they can watch whatever they want or they don't watch. So a lot of the delivery itself of these communication plans is also suboptimal, but the content itself needs to be a lot more precise, a lot lighter for the ordinary person to be able to digest. Yeah, that's kind of my first kind of view on PSPs.
Yeah, so it's great. I believe that you mentioned the success ingredient to a successful PSP, which is personalization. So the ecosystem or the platform can be developed at a very high standards. However, if it's if it's not customized or personalized to fit the patient needs, and here I can say it, if as you mentioned that we're looking for beyond 2021 healthcare system or healthcare ecosystem that is looked to patients as consumer, and we are talking about consumerism and patient satisfaction, and it has to fit the patient life, not just the patient need related to this medication or this kind of or disease. So it's you perfectly summarize it into personalization, personalized communication, and personalized design of the program to fit the needs. So how the technology can enable, as enabler, I mean this could never happen if there is no technology. But in the digital health era and the technology, how can this be personalized to patients? If I have a program with 10 patients, so each and every patient has his own program delivered to or his own value. So how can the technology help or enable this?
I think that's a complicated question. I'll tell you honestly my view on personalization, and not to be a pessimist, but I think very often kind of the first step towards a digital program is a very simple MVP or minimum viable product, right? And if you try to personalize or add too many features, typically these programs kind of fail, and we've seen so many kind of fail in the process just because someone wants to come in with a big promise, or they want to change the world in 3 months, or kind of these, and a very typical kind of corporate pitfall in my view. I think at this stage, personalization is important just by giving people choice. Really, if you send me as simple as 10 different YouTube videos and I just watch the one I like, that's already personalization enough, as opposed to having a call center agent read out 7 minutes worth of guidelines, right? It's I think the key here is really to start very simple, start at the basics, right? And I think instead of kind of going for keywords like AI or I don't know, deep learning, or just the stuff that people say without actually any practical kind of software development implications. And I would, at this stage, I think at this stage, when it comes to PSP and digital, we're still in the infrastructure stage. So it's not exactly about how we engage the patient. It's about how are we connected to the medical providers? How do we ensure that there's no fraud or abuse in a country like Egypt? So it's much more fundamental questions, I would say infrastructure, rather than having some artificial intelligence that's talking to the patient, right? That's not where we are. That's not where the industry is. That's not even where the technology is at the moment. And so again, I think the key is to start very simple, not to overload these programs with complicated requirements, and just focus on the most basic version of the process working very well.
Okay, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So sometimes we are overwhelmed by the technology, the complicated technology to show that the advancement of programs or something, but we forget the basics that are essential for the program success. Thank you, Karim. And So if I ask you, how do you see the next generation patient support program, the future? I mean, yes, we know that Egypt and our region is still lagging behind a little bit. But if we talk about the global pharma as a sponsor, but it can be initiated by anyone. So how do you see the next generation patient support program globally?
I think that's a difficult question to answer, but for starters, I think the starting point is how patients enroll in patient support programs, right? That's the point of failure in many programs. Who qualifies? How do you verify that they do actually qualify? And just having a better cooperation framework with medical providers for enrollment. I think this is really the first step in the chain that has to be fixed. And I would argue it starts at digitizing medical records. So instead of patients basically being told in the doctor's office they qualify for enrollment, would you like to enroll? Would you do this? There is some automatic detection for who enrolls, just aggregating databases of medical providers together with maybe public databases and having some kind of automated approach towards enrolling patients to patient support programs. And I think this will increase the numbers significantly. You'll be able to choose the patient, not be subjected to basically people coming in to request to enroll. I think that's a kind of a dramatic shift. I would argue possibly already happening somewhere else in the world. Again, I only have Egypt as a data point. So that's one. Two, I think the engagement interface in general will obviously go digital. Instead of having to receive any kind of call, instead of you'll be able to chat, you'll be able to get maybe a landing page that is personalized to you, that has all the content that you care about. Medication delivery services will flourish everywhere in the world. You'll not have to go to a pharmacy. You'll not have to go at least like here in Egypt, exchange boxes and so on. So all of this will be completely streamlined, and the patient will basically be enrolled while he is at home and get his stuff at home, and everything will be seamless. That's really how I see kind of the customer journey. Even the home labs and all of this can be delivered at home if economic for the patient. So it's a very big combination between home care services in general and just having a solid infrastructure for financial reconciliation with the medical providers. Not being limited to a specific medical provider is also very, very important. To be completely open, democratized, so a platform where regardless of where you go, you will be identified and you will be given the opportunity to enroll.
It's also very important, and from what I saw from my experience in pharma, especially over the last 6 years, that pharma company can win strategically and commercially, and even PSP can be a competitive advantage for certain company if it's designed and the correct strategy is put in place. So again, it has to be personalized. It has to touch a real need or touch points in the patient journey that makes the most of the difference or the benefit for patients. And it's not just what we are talking about when during our meetings or our brand team discussion, but it's what the patient needs, and it's different from country to country. It's different from disease area to disease area. So this is very important to be taken into consideration in designing a correct PSP strategy, whoever the leading it is, marketing, medical affair, or whatever. And the last thing, which is the data, because data, as we hear these days, is the currency of healthcare, or the future healthcare currency. So how to utilize data? Without data, we don't have anything. I mean, we don't have, we cannot establish anything correctly, either in the healthcare or outside. Yes, we are lagging behind this stage. However, we have to think how we will utilize these data, how we can, the PSP is to be a dynamic process. for continuous improvement and enhancing based on KPI and analytics from the data collected, and definitely for the compliance part. I can see that the next generation PSP, it will be still personalized, data-driven. It's grounded by behavioral science, AI, whatever, but it has to be personalized. It has to combine different services around the patient life and the patient journey itself. It will be a predictive, adaptive to the patient needs, and fitting into the whole patient life. So by this, Karim, if you have anything to add, please go ahead.
No, thank you very much. It was a real pleasure talking to you, Nashwa. And well, I look forward to working with more people who are keen to advance the topic. And thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Nashwa, and thank you, Karim. And now we have Sharif Al-Fiqi, also from UDEWI. Hello, Sharif.
Hello, it's a pleasure being here.
Yes, same here. So, Sharif, we're gonna do the last Q&A of the night. It's been a very long day. We've had 3 hours. And just really quickly introduce yourself so that people know who you are.
Sure. I'm Sharif Al-Fiqi. I'm co-founder of UDEWI. I'm also UDEWI's CTO. Met Karim a few years back when this was a small idea on how to tackle this market, specifically Egypt, and how to tackle the medication delivery service in general.
And you guys have been doing a really good job at that. It's been really exciting seeing your growth. And I see you also, like a lot of people tend to, beat up UDEWI a little bit, saying, okay, they're just delivering drugs to the patients, but you're doing a lot more than that, right? And I know that you have a lot in your team that you're trying to do it. So as a CTO, like how do you see like the complexity of building technology for, being between payers and pharma and patients can't be an easy game. I have never spoken to anyone in healthcare that says I love being in healthcare, right? And you're dealing with like all this like structural complexity. So tell us a little bit about it. What's the kind of innovation process and like the biggest things you've been dealing with over the past years?
Okay. Yes, you're absolutely right. It's very, very hard to actually get everyone sort of speaking the same language, right? So, and this was actually the starting point, being able to build one catalog of drugs that we can actually use across the pharmacy, use across the payers, that is also mapped to their internal systems, some of them that have been around for years, some of them that are that some of them don't even have systems, and being able to build this sort of universal mapping of drugs, services, and all that is key for this to work. And this is actually where we started. We started with a drugs catalog that we mapped. We then started looking into more of a standard way to sort of store these transactions. We decided to move to an HL7 standard and sort of try to maintain this structure for interoperability between systems, yet the external systems are not necessarily HL7 compatible, not necessarily following the same structure. So we had to come up with all these little, let's say, transformers that would transform the data from one system to another that is very specific to a provider or an insurance company or a pharmacy or whatever. And this helped us a lot get to where we are right now.
That's fantastic, especially the idea of using global standards and thinking of data structure early on, because a lot of people talk about AI and machine learning, and the basic enablers of these catchphrases is very boring work, right? It's very like rolling up your sleeves and going and figuring out integrations and changing like data formats and stuff. So I really appreciate that, and I think that's something that a lot of people can miss when thinking of Udewi. And we have Nashwa too. Nashwa, thanks for
Hi.
that awesome session.
Sorry for this is the technology.
Yes, so and we've just been talking about how hard it is, even just running an event. And I want to remind people, like now we're talking about PSPs and how to engage patients and how to engage, how pharma can engage patients holistically through giving them all these this whole support system, this whole net. And that was the talk that just ended. And I want to remind everyone that you can still apply to the platform with Sanofi. So we're keeping the QR code here. We're going to be going offline shortly, but remember to use the link and try to put in your ideas if you've been inspired by this. Nashwa, I'm kind of interested in your take on we talked a little bit about global markets and local markets, and you see a lot of what is going on with governments, but you've also worked for multiple pharma companies, right? So what do you think is next after your conversation with Kareem? Like, what's next in terms of what Egypt would be able to do in this space?
So this is very interesting question, and I think that I can see the universal health insurance system. If I look for this as on the upcoming, or it's not the upcoming, we live in it now, and it's implemented. And I saw this even by myself that the system allows even the service provider to do like a kind of competition to provide quality service to the patients. And here is quality service, personalized services. And this is what exactly we're talking. I was talking with Kareem about the personalized. It's not just patient-centered approach, it's personalized care. And this is for personalized care. I think this is the new era. Yes, we don't call it in Egypt yet the personalized or precision medicine because we don't have all the enablers. However, we started to look at this patient satisfaction, patient convenience with the service, patient need, individualized patient, factors that contribute to the management of the disease. We can see now the patient is very empowered. They know a lot about their disease, the options, the services, even this kind of services provided in different clinics and hospitals, and they compare and go. So it's the personalized era. We started it, and it's the golden opportunity either for pharma or even for the startups that are thinking of digital health solution is to partner with the government or the healthcare system in Egypt now, because they are really very interested in such solutions. It can be very simple solution, but it will link a solution to another inside the healthcare ecosystem, connecting one stakeholder to another for the sake of providing personalized service around the patient need or the patient journey.
Yeah. And patient journey has a lot.
Sorry, Omar.
I feel like there's a bit of echo here. Let's see. Okay. So yeah, patient journey is something that people have been coming back to, and thanks for also like commenting on precision medicine, because we had a whole talk about this, and you know what, again, like what Sharif is doing from a CTO perspective, like doing the hard work of structuring data, that's what's I think going to lead us ultimately to having data that's worth mining and doing kind of interesting work with. So thanks for like tying those for us together, Nashwa. And it certainly seems to be an exciting time in Egypt to see a company like Udewi do what it does, and for all of us to kind of come together and be able to have all these speakers. So, you know, one question I have for you is, you know, as an audience, which session did you enjoy the most today? And are there topics that we didn't really talk about that we should have or should next time?
Yeah, so if we, it was very interesting to hear about the precision medicine. I personally like this topic very much. And by the way, even we sometimes look at our region or our country. Yes, we're lagging behind, but we did a lot of things that are very good. And if we talk about the precision medicine and human genome and the human genetics, we started this in Egypt here. And we started even the government working on such approaches for genetic diseases, for instance. So it's, yeah, we are there. And with some push from the innovator, the innovative startups for innovative solution, we will be, we will take a very quick move in the upcoming 2 or 3 years. What we what we would touch base, which is the part related to the restrictions on the pharma companies or in the healthcare systems related to the compliance and regulations, because this is always a barrier in implementing a lot of solution. And the healthcare system is usually looked at like away from innovation. Pharma companies afraid of doing or implementing a lot of solution because of the regulation, the new, worldwide regulations, as well as in our region, because we have a lot of changes in our region. So I believe this would be an important topic, and this is also a topic for innovation as well, because providing solution, especially in the digital era, to overcome one of the obstacles we see in the compliance or in this part, it will be a great, innovation as well.
Thank you, Nashwa. Yeah, and I see Sharif nodding vigorously when you started talking about regulations, and whenever we talk about obstacles in healthcare, we all agree.
Yeah.
What's on your mind, Sharif? And I'll give you the floor to close this event off with whatever thoughts you have.
Yeah, well, just one thing that's we have to bring it up every time, especially when we're talking about data, is compliance, data privacy. How are we storing this data? Who has access to this data? In Egypt, I'm happy that we're drafting a law now for data storage and how it should be anonymous and how it should be stored, which is part of like what's happening in every other world. Now, this also, to me, from my perspective, adds a lot of complexity, and how to manage multiple sources of data to have the data anonymous at some stages and identifiable at others, yet being still secure and maintaining good performance. You don't have to wait for a minute to pull an EMR, right? So then it becomes ridiculous. So it's these kind of things that the challenges that we see and we're going to continue to see in the region, and for us as UDEWI to be able to expand regionally, we need to comply with the different regulations and for each country. This is definitely a challenge, but again, when we come to talk about medical records, I think the number one priority should be privacy and how these data are stored. Mine them, yes, you can mine the data, you can get whatever you want, and then just get consent and do all the things that we're actually discussing. But yes, I'm very excited about what's going to happen in the region in the next couple of years. And hopefully with the great people that were here today will pave the way for this.
Yes, thank you so much. Thanks, Sharif, for ending us on a positive note, despite us going into like some of the bigger obstacles in healthcare. But thank you so much for being with us, and thank you, Nashwa.
Thank you.
And finally, I just want to give a big shout out to the team that made this possible today. First of all, Tariq Mandoor, who is our marketing specialist, but also like the director. He's like, we're calling him the Christopher Nolan of this show. He's the reason why you're able to see all the smooth transitions and stuff. And then Islam Amin from the Healthcare Business Club, and he's our marketing director, and he is the reason why we're able to reach out to you and creating all these great designs and the social media campaign to really push our impact. And finally, Inji, I don't know if you're listening or not, but she's the one that created all the artwork and the designs for this whole campaign. So with that, I lastly want to thank all the speakers, starting with Sanofi Egypt and regional. And thanks for all the speakers that joined us today and made this really an event that I'm truly proud of, and hope we can do a lot more that creates that kind of real conversation, because we don't want to get stuck in just looking at the West and thinking that we can't do certain things. No, like, know that if you're an innovator, people out there are looking for you. And if you can't get like good deals where you're looking, then you're not looking far enough, because somewhere out there people appreciate what you do. And I hope the speakers gave you enough reason to continue doing the hard work of innovation, because it's not as glamorous as we like to make it sound like. It's a lot of hard work and a lot of uncertainty. So with that, I'm Omar Shaker, again, one of the founding members of Health 2.0 Egypt. I'd like to thank Sanofi, and I give you guys the last chance while you're with me to click on that QR code and submit your solution to Sanofi. We will continue opening the form in the next week or so. So, if you're not ready right now, do that tomorrow, do that after tomorrow. It's okay. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you, guys, and good night.